Hello, welcome to You'll Only Listen Twice, a podcast where we talk about the Bond movies, official and unofficial. My name is Jake. Here are my other hosts.
My name is Troy.
And I'm a very disappointing sequel to a very good movie that came a few years before. I am also a disappointing son, and my name is Jan.
Jan, you sound too happy. You gotta be mopier.
This is how we talk now. Well, we had to give a tribute to the absolute most fucking dog shit official James Bond song.
Do we just need to get this out of the way right off the bat? A little band named Radiohead was commissioned to write a song, which they did.
And they wrote a banger.
They wrote a banger. They paused in the middle of what, as of this recording, is their most recent album. They took like 2 months off to write and record this song.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which was rejected for being too sad and mopey.
So instead, they replaced it with another song that is way too sad and mopey.
No, turn this off.
Turn it off! Who should we replace the mopey song with?
Well, I don't want to ruin. We'll get to it when we get to the opening credits, but I have a hot take about this song.
You like it. We know you like this shit. We know you like this stupid,
This is a hot take when
shit.
we get to the opening credits. Yes, listeners, we are in for a treat. Once again, we're backed into a corner.
Also, Paul, did you know that they initially submitted an unreleased song initially when they were asked to do the theme song to Spectre? And they were like, no, we want something recorded or written and recorded for this movie because then it won't be eligible for Academy consideration.
I smell bullshit.
No, but then they went back and wrote and recorded Spectre, and according to Sam Mendes, he's like, yeah, by the time they went back and recorded their version, we got the ball rolling on Sam Smith to give us their mopey ass song, which honestly, I'm making fun of the song. I don't hate it that much. I just like making fun of it. I like it and I hate it at the same time. It's a very bizarre relationship.
Yeah, it's not the worst
no good.
song. It's not worse than License to Kill.
No, License to Kill is a much better song.
By a fucking mile.
There's another Bond song that I think is worse than this one, but I won't say it because I know it will start Powder King.
What, the Billie Eilish TikTok kids are gonna come after you?
No. I'm afraid of the Tomorrow Never Dies truthers that I know are among us.
Oh, come on.
Yes.
That's a good song.
You fucker.
Damn, that was so uncalled for, Paul.
Paul, if we're busting out the fucker this early, we're not gonna get through the episode.
Turns into Frank Booth. Like, you fuck! You understand? Fuck! You fucker!
You son of a bitch. This is the first time Paul is like legit going to kill one of us.
Like, looking back, it's very funny that of all the flavor of the month pop stars that the Eon Productions hire, Sheryl Crow is the one that we truly get the most defensive about.
She's good. It's a good song.
She's good. I like her.
It's not flavor of the month. How dare you?
Jake, I don't believe that there were any production issues with this movie, right? I
Oh
think
no,
it
this is like
sailing.
the smooth as butter production. Actually, we should also say we're talking about Spectre.
Do me a favor, will you? Throw that down the toilet.
Yeah, you guys just jumped into Bash Inspector.
We can't help it. I mean,
We jumped the gun.
we jumped the gun a little bit because, hot take here, This is the worst Bond movie in the entire official series.
I don't agree with you.
No.
I think it's pretty much on par with Quantum of Solace in terms of my enjoyment.
Quantum of Solace at least semi-functions as a bad Redbox movie. This movie is a complete failure as an artsy take on James Bond while also trying to be a regular James Bond movie. I don't get why people are so soft on this movie. This movie is fucking garbage.
Well, we are coming out swinging, folks. Welcome to the episode, everybody.
All right, for the listeners at home, because Jake didn't introduce this episode properly, I'm getting this episode thrown out of court because this...
You demand a mistrial.
You demand a
Yeah, overruled.
I love Spectre. This is one of the only two true masterpieces that the James Bond series has
My
produced.
God. It's one of the only ones that's like unanimously agreed that it's like really bad.
It's
Excuse
dog
you,
shit.
have you been to the James Bond Reddit? Every day on the James Bond subreddit, people are
I
like,
don't interact with my fans. I'm too good for that.
Jan, we know you're on there. We know you're on there every day talking about your favorite Bond girls from the 80s, talking about what you think about Robert Brown
Yeah,
versus
I've started the
Ray
Brit Eklund following.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the production. So get ready, guys. This is our last time we can actually talk about Kevin McClory.
No! Is he dead? But he was just in your apartment a few weeks
Having
ago.
diarrhea, holding us all at gunpoint.
Well, he died in 2005, but then who was that? That came in our
Was that just a man? Was just-
Well, you could say that the series is not immune to paranormal activity or ghosts or specters, if you will.
Yeah, that's true. We can say it's. I mean, I'm dead. Melissa's dead. This could.
Wait,
also be a
when did
ghost.
Jan die?
I don't remember. I mean, I feel like I died recently.
Well,
The
yeah,
recently
you were,
deceased.
You were shot by Raul Silva or something.
Yeah. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah,
last
that's right.
episode.
We
I
killed.
think I died too. That's right. I
Yeah.
forgot I'm a ghost too.
Yeah. No. Well, actually, no. You guys are communicating with us through a DVD that you left with your ceramic bulldog.
Yeah, this is all previously recorded.
Yes.
I knew exactly what Jake and Troy and Paul were gonna say, so I just left it all in there.
Right. It's a lot like the Book of Henry.
This
actually.
episode is going to tie together all the plot threads from our previous episodes and reveal that this is all the work of Professor back for the reboot.
Another ghost.
Another ghost.
Look, Jay, could you inform us about the production of the film Spectre?
Sure. Before we can get to the chaotic production of Spectre, we need to conclude the 50-year-long Kevin McClory arc.
No, right.
Yes, because in Quantum of Solace, they keep referring to a mysterious organization, but never by name.
Well, Quantum.
I told you what you wanted to know about Quantum.
Yes.
Well, but we're like, is this what you want it to be? You know,
Is this really what you want?
They wanted it to be Spectre, but they couldn't use it, so they're like, Quantum. We'll call it Quantum because the movie's called Quantum of Solace because that's an Ian Fleming title. Haha, let's do that. But anyway, last time we checked on Kevin, he teamed up with Sony to create his next installment in the series of James Bond films that are remakes of Thunderball, Warhead 2000 AD. MGM sued Sony, and then Sony and Kevin McClory countersued, saying, actually, Kevin McClory is one of the creators of the cinematic James Bond, so he's owed royalties. And then at the result of that, MGM got Casino Royale and Sony got Spider-Man. But Kevin McClory didn't keep him down for long. He kept pushing like, no, I am owed royalties for the cinematic version of James Bond because I helped Ian Fleming in the 1960s come up with Thunderball.
as he should. He invented James Bond.
Well, he invented everything.
Yeah.
So this did not hold up in court. He tried to appeal it. The appeals court sided with the original decision, and nothing came about it. But there's some people who said that he was still working on another remake of Thunderball
My
in the
God,
early
let it go,
2000s.
dude.
And he kept working on
This
this
is so sad.
until his death in 2005.
My God.
Oh, he literally died the year before Casino Royale?
Yes. But I think he died like right after like they announced Casino Royale and introduced or had the press conference about it.
So why did it take so long to get the rights of Spectre back?
So there was like a legal thing that went on for another 6 years, and then in 2013, finally, Eon Productions, MGM, and the McClory estate formally settled the rights issues over Thunderball, Spectre, Blofeld, and so Eon now controls Spectre and Blofeld.
I'm confused. If they control Spectre, why is the bad guy Franz Oberhauser?
Well,
Franz Oberhauser died 20 years ago, James. The man you're talking to now is Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Catch your name.
Why in the script do they call him Franz Oberhauser, but then they have a little note on the side of the script that says, would Blofeld do this?
well, it was a secret that you're making a movie called Spectre, and they wanted to keep Blofeld a surprise, even though the fucking movie is called Spectre.
Dumbest fucking thing.
Obviously, this was part of a trend at the time with Star Trek in the Darkness, Khan, John Harrison, Dark Knight Rises, Miranda Tate, Talia, and people are
Yes.
like, they're chasing the trend. But of course, it should be noted that your much beloved Skyfall does this exact same thing with Moneypenny.
Yes, it does.
Well, my name's Eve. Eve Moneypenny.
Well, Moneypenny, I guess it's unnecessary and stupid.
She's not the main villain.
Yeah.
So if it's the side chick, it is fine.
Well, screenplay wise is so fucking stupid here because it's like, spoiler alert, they reveal that Bond has known Franz Oberhauser his entire life. But then after Franz is like, oh, my name's Blofeld now, he's just like, okay, Blofeld. It's like, what the fuck? Like, what?
That is the funniest thing, is they have this deep connection, but Daniel Craig plays him the whole time as, oh God, this guy.
You think this movie's funny?
Yeah, oh, I think this movie's hilarious. Just wait until we
This
get
is
to the
one of the
opening.
most boringest things ever.
It's so boring, self-serious, and stupid. But yes, so there's a long journey as to how they were going to reintroduce Blofeld. So they got the rights back to Spectre, so they're naturally like, hell, let's bring in Spectre in the next movie. And in between Skyfall and Spectre, Sam Mendes was like, I'm not going to come back to direct, let someone else do it. One of the people that they talked to was Nicholas Winding Refn.
I have no regrets about Only God Forgives. I think it's a masterpiece, and it is.
Is there a
Expensive.
doctor in the house?
that would have been horrible.
It would have been really bad, and it would have been really funny.
Yeah. James Bond goes to Thailand to like silently stare at minorities he wants to beat up.
Yeah, no, he wants to get his hands cut off because he wants to fuck M.
I was going to say, yeah, he sucks. Nicholas Winding Refn totally isn't one of the highest rated directors on my letterbox.
No, I like Drive.
I mean, Drive is amazing. The rest of them
Drive's
suck.
pretty good, yeah.
Bronton's good.
Who gives a shit?
But there's not a Nicholas Winding Refn podcast. This is a Spectre podcast. Unfortunately, this is a Spectre
I know,
podcast.
James Bond fans, they're too hard on the movie. Let them get it out.
Oh yeah, they'll come after us for this one.
History will be on our side.
Anyway, so Sam Mendes comes back. They pay him a shit ton of money, and he's trying to work on a story with John Logan. John Logan's back, and they have the rights to Blofeld, so they want to use him. They're trying to figure out, how do we reintroduce Blofeld?
Badly.
Yeah, well, they wanted to have him be an African warlord played by possibly Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Was that when he was going to be C, the Andrew Scott character?
No, he wasn't C.
Because TV Trope said he was also in talks to play C.
No more TV tropes.
We should have learned by now.
I should preface this beforehand that a lot of the information about the production of Spectre was leaked during the Sony hack of 2014.
Remember in film school when we thought North Korea and the United States was going to go to war over The Interview?
Oh, yeah.
And we were like, movies, they matter. And they don't. They don't matter.
They really don't. Yeah.
But thanks to that, now we have a whole bunch of information about how Spectre was made. So yeah, they wanted Blofeld to be an African warlord, that there was like a sequence at a diamond mine. There was another Bond girl who is like part of the CIA, and it was kind of just like, no, we don't want to do that. And then at some point, Blofeld was changed to a woman, and then they finally figured out, what if
he was a white man?
What if Blofeld was not just a white man? What if he was the most charismatic German villain in the Hollywood film industry at the
Yes. So they were going like, okay, if Spectre is going to be, because they wanted to have it be Spectre was in charge of like everything that has happened in the past 3 movies.
Stupid idea.
We can't just have him be some guy. And Sam Mendes came up with a brilliant idea. What if there's another key to Bond's past? What if he was adopted by the Oberhausers like in Ian Fleming, but he had a brother named Franz.
God
and
damn it.
He became Ernst Stavro Blofeld because Bond forced him out of the nest. And they were like, now we got an idea.
Now we're cooking. It's the worst idea you've ever heard, and it's like, we got a movie.
Look, Austin Powers 3 came up with this idea first.
Dr. Evil's not your son. I am. You both are.
And we grant that. But, it gives Christoph Waltz some fun lines.
He has no fun, 0 charisma in this movie.
Oh.
Well, it is funny that somehow between John Logan and Sam Mendes, they seem to want to turn James Bond into Peter Parker.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. They like simultaneously are like, we can't know that much about Bond. However, all we can tell are like hackneyed forced stories that tie into Bond's past, but don't really. Because everybody did mind Bond's house showing up in Skyfall. Everyone, they're just like, oh, we could just keep doing that and just have like Blofeld be his brother. Which is fundamentally like a bad idea from the get-go, because I feel like the personal connection between Bond and Blofeld is already there, because if you reveal that Blofeld is the author of all of James's pain,
The author of all your pain.
Ah, great line.
if you're comparing it to the Casino Royale novel, it's quoted like where he's going after the arm that holds the whip, and this Blofeld is the arm that holds the whip that made him fall in love with Vesper, and she kills herself. That's enough personal stakes already. You don't really
That's
need
enough,
anything
yeah.
more.
Like Spectre being like the parent company or whatever of Quantum, that I can totally buy. But then saying that like Raul Silva was also Spectre, I'm like, what?
Le chiffre, green, silver. A nice pattern developed. You interfered in my world. I destroyed yours.
And then like, oh, and I'm your brother,
My little brother.
and I'm doing this because I'm jelly about my daddy. And it's like, this is awful.
It's like fundamentally fucked, and they should have thought about this.
If we're talking about this now, did he set up the avalanche that killed his dad? Like, did he blow up
I
a
guess
mountain?
that's the implication.
Yeah, no, he killed his own father.
You killed him. Yes, I did.
They
All right,
do say
good.
that in the
Like
movie.
he was so angry that his daddy son, like, it's just so it's like, why would anyone go along with a terrorist organization just for this guy's vendetta?
Well, and the thing is, what's really funny about my research into the thought process that these fuckers were thinking when they were doing this is like, yeah, I guess they wanted to have more stakes. But then Sam Mendes' big idea was like, what if he was the adopted brother of James Bond and was out for revenge against him? And there you have stakes. But then you also see like already in the notes from executives going like, it kind of just makes Spectre's whole plan, no matter how big it is, it just makes it seem small.
Exactly.
Inherently.
Because you're just trying to bug on this one spy who's 007. There's other there's 8 of these fuckers. You know,
Right.
like,
and they all knew this, but they kept it going. And each time that a draft came in, there's just like, yeah, no, everything else works, I guess. But that last act is rough as fuck. And they're just like, don't worry, we're fixing it. They never fixed it.
no, it's horrible.
Okay, question time. I'm personally curious about this. If you were to factor in the things you dislike about this movie, how big of a percentage is Blofeld being Bond's brother?
That's a good percentage of it.
It's probably like a 15% for me, but the other 75% is also fucked.
But I'm curious about this because I did not see this movie when it came out. For like 5 years, people just would not shut up about Blofeld being Bond's brother being stupid.
and by people, me.
Yeah.
So when I went into this movie, I'm like, oh, he's James Bond's brother. So while I grant that maybe if you went in sight unknown and you were like, what? They're making Blofeld Bond's brother? That's stupid. Maybe I would be angrier about it, but because I was prepped for that and I knew that like a movie's going to have sound or a movie's going to have CGI.
But Troy, what does that add to a movie? Live and Let Die has fucking sound.
Yeah, but Live and Let Die has other... Now, see, that's interesting. Live and Let Die's issues I was also made aware of before I watched it, and I was able to watch and I was able to go, these issues are very bad. With Spectre, I'm watching it with this issue in mind, and I'm like, yeah, it lends personal stakes. He has a personal relationship.
There are more issues to be discussed, but I should also get into more of what happened behind the scenes.
Sorry, I just have to say, like, my experience with you, granted, was very different. I watched this, literally, I watched it with Jake.
Yes.
The first time it was ever screened in America. Like, ever. And our anonymous friend that we won't mention, who's a fanboy about everything, when Franz goes, "My name is Blofeld," he just goes, "Woo!" And I went, I hate this. I'm like,
honestly, for me, watching it that first time, it was kind of like a Phantom Menace-esque situation where you're just kind of like,
you try to convince yourself you're good.
You're trying to
good.
convince yourself, like, it's not that bad, is it? And then you think about it, like, everything that happened in the movie, and you're just
bad.
like,
yeah.
No, everything is, like, much worse. Oh my god, all this is terrible. And then I'm just like, because I had to go through, like, the 7 stages of grief, because I was so fucking hyped for this movie.
Well, yeah, Sam Mendes doing it again.
Sam Mendes is back, and I love Skyfall, and Spectre is back, and he's Blofeld. Well,
Blofeld's
we all
back.
knew it was Blofeld.
Yeah.
Blofeld is going to be back. He's played by Christoph Waltz. I'm just like, this sounds perfect. This sounds like an easy layup. How do you fuck that up?
I was excited because I heard that Sam Mendes, our Latinx brother, was giving us a shout out, and he was doing the opening sequence in Mexico City. And I'm like,
Yes.
hell yeah. And then I watch it and I'm like, what have you done to my boy?
Oh yeah, did you know that originally they didn't come up with the Mexico sequence until a little bit later in the original draft? There was going to be like a Mission Impossible-esque scam involving Bond, Moneypenny, and Q.
That would have been fun.
Trying to get information about Spectre, and like Bond is like in a cage fight and he fakes his own death.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
Intriguing.
And then they have to decode like who's responsible for everything, and they use like an old World War II like cipher machine, and they find Blofeld.
Oh.
And that was the opening of the movie.
Not Spectre.
Not Spectre. Yeah, so behind the scenes, it was a complete and utter shit show. Daniel Craig tore his ACL and could barely walk, and he, instead of shutting down for 8 months, he was just like, I'm just going to push through it. And he was fucking miserable. And Sam Mendes knew that they hadn't cracked the third act. Because initially the third act was going to be, okay, so at the Spectre base, there wasn't a torture scene. At one point, it was a dinner scene where Blofeld goes into more detail about his childhood. Like, Bond and him played cards and never included me. And then one day, I played cards and Bond beat me at the cards.
See, that would have made more sense.
It makes sense. It's still stupid.
It's still
It makes a
stupid,
little bit
but-
more sense than in the movie.
Since we're still talking about this twist, which movie came first? The Puss in Boots solo movie or Spectre?
The Puss in Boots movie.
Okay, so
And
then-
Austin Powers and Goldmember.
Yeah, the Austin Powers and Goldmember elephant
But yeah,
in the room.
I feel we needed that scene where like James Bond thinks back to his whole childhood and everything bad that's ever happened to him, and it's just Blofeld standing up and looking back at him like the Patton Oswalt Humpty Dumpty creepy egg guy in Puss in
Yeah,
Boots.
but he's just like in there in the memory.
Yeah.
It makes the stupid idea even stupider, but I guess it like adds something to it, I guess. Even though I'm like, no, this entire idea is idiotic. Why would you do this? But they had different things about the third act. So during the scene, I guess Q was supposed to be kidnapped and being held at the base at one point, and then Bond was going to trick Blofeld into thinking that there is incriminating evidence at the old MI6 building that will implicate him in all the crimes, and so that tricks him into going to London. And so Bond and Q escape and intercept him in London. Also, Irma Bunt was in this version.
Oh, cool.
So, and it ends with Bond shooting Blofeld in the fucking face.
Oh, awesome. I would have
It would have been like when Blofeld is mentioning the card game. He's just like, he freaking bluffed me and he won the card game and this pissed me off. And Bond goes like, I have no memory of this. He's like, he had threes. He would have lost and I folded. And this traumatized me and stuff. And then at the end, he like shoots Blofeld and he's just like, you can't kill me. I'm your brother. And Bond goes like, it was a pair of twos, not threes. And then shoots him in the face. And he throws his gun into the river and he retires from the service and goes off with Madeline Swan. That's another thing about the initial idea was that this was going to be Bond's last mission.
You can tell.
Yeah, I think it still reads that way.
And Sony executives were excited about this. They're like, oh, what will cause Bond to leave? Oh, he falls in love again. He finally gets over Vesper, even though we just had like two movies
about him doing that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But now he's over it. Well, and it's also like he has his newfound family at MI6, which he just ditches. But whatever. Daniel Craig has a miserable time. Sam Mendes has a miserable time. Everyone looks tired and pissed off. Daniel Craig says he'd rather slash his wrists than do another Bond movie.
Classic line.
Because of just how fast and not thought out this movie was.
I don't know if we talked about this in the previous ones. I've already forgotten. But at least as early as Quantum, he was getting some pretty significant injuries from like stunts and things and like started complaining about it. And this is the movie where he was like very loudly complaining to the press about why he didn't want to do Bond and how they'd have to pay him a fortune to come back.
Like a literal mansion. And they did.
And he got a producing credit on this movie, so he's already...
He also had like a say in this. James Bond can't just be an agent. He has to be like literally a superhero with a superhero backstory. And
yes,
I think they were going to go that way either way because that was the trend in the movies of the time.
Well, yeah, and this is a case where like James Bond copying the trends really fucking hurts it.
At least with the other Bond movies, they still make sense as escapist adventure movies. Here it's just like, we're trying to do a real movie and it fucks up the character.
This movie tries to tell a story with characters who go on arcs and have emotional reactions to other characters. This is the worst thing the Bond franchise has ever done.
Yeah, you just said the key word, Troy. Tries.
Fails.
Fucking falls flat on
All
its
right,
face.
I think that's most of the production things. Let's get into the movie because, oh boy, right off the bat, it already fucks up. Because let's talk about this. Finally, the gun barrel.
Take it away.
Finally, after 3 movies, I was so excited because I saw the fucking dots on the screen.
I mean, I remember you, Jake, just going crazy over the dots. You stood up. You clapped like Rich Evans, and then as soon as the fucking graphic showed up, you stopped clapping, and you were like, what?
Yeah, okay, let me get into this. We get the logos, we get the dots, and I'm like, oh my god, after all these years, we finally have a gun barrel in the right place. Thank fucking god. Immediately when the dot irises out to the gun barrel, you know that this movie's going to be fucked.
Yeah.
The graphic is really cheap looking.
So shitty.
They're trying to make it look like the original gun barrel.
Yeah, but with none of the details.
But with none of the details, it looks like a fucking shitty PNG image. It looks like our logo.
It looks like our trailer. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
It looks like our logo. And you're just like, how did we get this far? Because I feel like with Pierce Brosnan, we figured out how to create like the modern version of the gun barrel. And now we're back to this, and it looks like shit. Sin number 1. Number 2, Bond is walking around with his gun hanging out, and you can see.
Yeah, he's like strolling. He's not hiding the gun at all.
And here's the thing about the gun barrel. The main point of it is that, like, oh, this is an unassuming gentleman who is not armed, and the gun is the twist.
Just your average Slavic grandfather in a tuxedo walking in broad daylight. And then, oh my god, he's got a gun, you know?
Yeah. Then number 3, the blood looks like shit. It looks like someone on YouTube made the blood effects.
After Effects, yeah.
Again, we figured this out with Pierce Brosnan. How did you fuck this up? Also, at the same time, instead of it still being a flat image, for some reason, the gun barrel gets a little bit darker.
Look at Paul. He's like cracking.
Finally, to make things worse, in every Bond movie, the blood and Bond fade out, and then we get a white circle, and it irises in on the first shot of the movie, or it's still Bond fades out. Even the early ones, it's just like it doesn't Iris in, but...
No, that's stupid, Jake. That's for fake movies. This is a real movie. Real movies start with a black screen.
Yeah. Also, to make things even worse, the music cue is off because it starts out with the da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da at the beginning with just the black screen, and then the Iris comes in, and then the music is fine. And then, what's even worse...
And you have a lot to say about these 5 seconds.
Yeah, okay.
Instead of, okay, we're not fading into the first shot of the movie, we have no Iris. What the hell is it? This must be something good. In American Courier font...
Yeah, that's my favorite part.
The words, the
boom.
Dead, with a blump in the background. And then, boom, speak.
Are alive.
You were thinking about another great sequel that starts with
sorry,
the Dead speak.
I mixed up my sequels that completely shit the bed. So, like, yeah, the Dead are alive.
Which makes less sense somehow.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like, it's so evocative where it's just like the dead are alive. An epitaph at the beginning of a Bond movie.
What does it mean?
Fun.
I've seen this movie 5 times. It's just like, the dead are alive. Who fucking cares?
Oberhauser was dead. Now he's alive.
But literally, in almost all these movies, there's a guy that used to be dead and turns out he's not dead.
Exactly. It's like the ultimate James Bond movie because it's the epitome of that.
Please look at this screenshot I just sent.
Okay. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, for listeners at home, Paul is cringing.
Yeah, because mind you, he has to edit this, and we've been 15 minutes debating on the first 10 seconds. We haven't seen a single frame of film yet.
Well, so far we've established the gun barrel is terrible. 60% of the reasons are because it looks like the original gun barrel.
Exactly.
Paul, you don't get it.
Let's get on with it.
The fucking thing that really gets me is the arm swinging, because it really yells of like, okay, principal photography's over. Daniel Craig is like, I never ever have to see these people again. I'm so happy. He gets a call one day like, oh, we have to shoot the gun. And he's like, oh, fuck the gun barrel. Can I just do it in like, I'll give you 10 minutes. And they're like, yeah. He goes, does the thing and then leaves in one take.
Okay, in fairness to Daniel Craig, a lot of these criticisms of him having the gun out, him swinging his arms, those aren't unique to Spectre. You also made those criticisms of the Quantum of Solace.
I think he's just bad at doing the gun barrel. I think he can't get it right.
Yeah, I think that's just his style towards the gun barrel.
No, he's very good at walking, because this first shot in My Dear Mexico, his walk is fucking fine, man.
Oh, like, yeah, the walk is so good when he's in the skull
got a good walk.
head.
Though I will say, okay, so problem number 1, Hoyte van Hoytema will win an Oscar in the future for an Oppenheimer movie. I am predicting. He is one of our finest living cinematographers, but if you've noticed, when he's not reined in, his color palette is a little orange, I would say. And then you make him shoot a movie in Mexico City. And I don't know if you've noticed, but if you watch shows like Breaking Bad or anything you've ever seen in your life, when there's a scene in Mexico, they think that we live in Arrakis. And everything looks orange as fuck. So you combine Hoyt's thing with Mexico, and you basically get, it looks like Dune. It's like immediately hideous to me, you know?
I get the idea that there's an orange filter. You don't feel it's more of a yellow filter? Like, I was just looking at it right
Mexico City's not orange or yellow. It looks like a city.
It's a little warm tone. I understand what you're saying. Well, maybe this is the part, we could just get this right off the bat. Even before our credit sequence, Mr. Deakins has not returned.
No. And Mendes is at the mercy of his DP with the visual style.
Well, yeah, we discussed that a little bit. Mendes has recruited for this film both Hoyte van Hoytema and Lee Smith, the editor, fresh off of Interstellar, in case you weren't sure what filmmaker he really would like
to be,
especially for this franchise, obviously, because he spoke about it before. But it is very funny because Hoyte, before he worked with Mr. Nolan, shot a movie called Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is very, very muted gray, London-y kind of stuff.
Yeah, and this looks like that.
And it looks like that. It doesn't look like his work with Nolan.
No, it doesn't look like remotely like an action-adventure movie should look.
Well, this movie's trying to be more of a spy thriller in certain aspects. So
no.
I think there is somewhat
This is the problem with this movie. This movie tries to go back to the silly, high-octane Bond with the big set pieces and the gadgets, but the tone is so dry, the story's so boring, it doesn't mesh at all.
I think that's the thing, is you say that a return with the gadgets and the big set pieces needs to necessarily be silly. What this movie asks is, what if we take those 1970s and 1980s tropes and we bring them back,
Make
but we
them
bring
boring.
them back in a more muted 2010s somber tone? I think it's an interesting marriage. But going back to this beginning Mexico City thing, I love the parade. Jan, tell me if this is true. I'm asking you a question. TV Tropes tells me there were no parades for the Day of the Dead before Spectre.
This is true.
Oh, okay. This is true.
This is, I think, the second time in this podcast history TV Tropes has been right.
Yes.
So, and I remember telling this to Jake the first time we watched this together.
Yeah.
I was like, there is no such thing. You know, like, but now there is, like, the big Day of the Dead thing at the beginning of the movie was not a thing in Mexico City at all. They made it up for the movie, but after the movie, now it's a thing, I guess, because people are expecting it.
Because people love Spectre and its cultural impact is unmatched.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like folklorists actually call this folklorismus, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is when there's a fake folkloric thing that ends like Paul Bunyan. Like, he was a fake folklore character that ended up becoming a real folklore character. And this was that, but for like a silly Halloween parade in Mexico.
I love Paul Bunyan.
I love him too, and I love Day of the Dead. So
can we do a Paul Bunyan podcast?
Yes, this is the one really good thing that came out of Spectre. I've been to the Day of the Dead parade since. It's very fun, very creative costumes. I will say, while they were filming this movie, here the traffic was insane.
And it's already pretty insane in Mexico City.
It's already the worst city in the world for traffic, like, bar none. You know? Mumbai is fucking like a small town compared to this monstrosity of a city. And it literally took me 3 hours to and from work, like, every day. So I hate Spectre. Yeah.
In 2014.
I did. Child labor laws in Mexico are very loose, baby. I was 9 years old.
Before Jake kidnapped you and took you to America.
And like, here, do you want to go see this James Bond movie with me?
I'm going to get very angry at the gun barrel.
Why, yes, mister.
Yeah, and it makes it even funnier because, like, one of the only worthwhile special features on the Blu-ray is a 20-minute thing about how they did the Mexico sequence, and they're just like, yeah, no, we're so glad that we could finally highlight this event. Like, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, they've been doing this for years, and it's just like, no, you didn't.
No. But literally, like, the entire city came together to make this scene happen. Like, pretty much every single person I knew, including myself, applied to be an extra on this thing. I didn't get it. I wasn't pretty enough or old enough or anything.
Even under skull makeup?
Even under skull makeup, I wasn't pretty enough for Mr. Sam Mendes.
This happened to you another time on The Batman. They wouldn't let you be the skull guy at the beginning.
That was Doug Walker.
A bat credit card?
The gig went to Doug, to the nostalgia critic. But yeah, no, the sequence, love the music here. Thomas Newman is slapping the the drums.
Oh,
like
yeah, music's great.
Yeah.
It's really fucking cool.
And then the incorporation with the Bond theme with, like, the, you know, you got the wind instrument when he finally takes off the mask, like the doo-doo-doo-doo.
That's all great. The costumes I love that they invented a fucking parade for this. But I don't like this oneer.
See, I love this oneer, or as I call it, a funner, because I'm having so much fun with it. It's just following James Bond. He's doing his own little adventure thing. He's
But
in
there's
disguise.
nothing fun happening on screen. They're just walking.
We're walking through a whole James Bond movie. We're back at the myth of Bond. He's like messing around with a girl. He's going to a sniper.
God damn it.
He's adjusting his sleeve like he did in Skyfall.
He's just doing things. These are just things happen.
Movies are just things happening. It depends on if you invest them with meaning. And in this oneer, we are fully catching up to who James Bond is, which is good as we go into a movie that's going to explore his psyche.
No, okay, so like my take on this is like the thing about Warner's is that it's usually for an action sequence, like in Children of Man, to make you feel like you're in the middle of it, or like to establish tension, like the beginning of Touch of Evil. This, no tension is being established, no geography is being established. It's just there to be there. Just because, oh, I'm an artiste, and all the hidden cuts are horrendous. Like they're so they're worse than Birdman. They're so obvious.
I would argue, in terms of establishing geography, it's most similar to the scene of Goodfellas, where Ray Liotta is like taking Lorraine Bracco like through the club, except the club is James Bond's life.
But this is just a Mexican hotel. This is not a thing. This is not the Copacabana Club. It's not a place he goes to
it's the
like
hotel
constantly.
where he has to go to do the hit.
The scene would be exactly the same if it was cut up. Exactly.
No, if it was cut up, it would be more tense because it's like, oh,
it would be better.
It's
like, no, if it was cut up, it would actually be better.
But we spend like a lot of time with Bond under a skull mask, and it's like, guess what? This guy that you thought was James Bond is actually James Bond. It's very simple. Honestly, you could say that it's like a theme of the movie insisting that a character is not the character who you think they are, but they are exactly the character you think they are.
Ah, you're catching on.
I think when a Warner has literally like 5 straight seconds of people just standing in an elevator, you should rethink, like, should this be a Warner?
But the whole thing of that is like you're watching them go up the elevator. Like, I'm just saying, sometimes this scene isn't about tension, to finish my previous point. It's about more like just how Bond is kind of cavalierly like in his mission phase, like establishing his status quo. And I think just seeing him like wait to go up the elevator to go into his perch, I find that interesting. I find it interesting how he prepares for a spy fate.
I don't think this Warner communicates anything. It was immediately obnoxious to me.
Like I'm like, oh, if you want to still keep that long shot of Bond going out the window and then walking, that's fine. But in the end, it's kind of like The Dead or Alive, where you're just kind of like, well, that was a choice, but why?
You can open literally just like establishing shot on parade, pants over to James Bond with the like aiming at the guy.
But then you're not getting the winding. You're not getting the build-up. So like the second half of the opening is going to be all helicopter action, and then this is kind of the build-up to it.
Yeah, but nothing's building up to the helicopter. It's just like walking. And oh, then he does this thing.
No, he's having a relationship with the girl. There's character dynamics going on here.
The girl we never see again?
Yeah, that character is apparently a Mexican agent, and that is not established.
Really?
Yes. Okay, we gotta move past this part, because we'll be here all day if we're talking about...
We all agree that Warner is bad. Let's move on.
Yeah, so he's after this one guy, and they're trying to blow up a stadium, and then they see Bond, the building blows up. That's fun. I'll give it that.
Very Murnau in The Last Laugh, when the building falls in over on him.
Yeah, very Buster Keaton-ish, if you would.
Yes.
No, it's fine. The only thing I will say is that you can tell that like Daniel Craig is in immense pain because it feels like he's like completely weightless because he's hooked on so many wires because it's just so effortless where it's just kind of like
he's like walking on the moon. Like the gravity in Mexico is like lighter.
Well, technically, with the high elevation, you're basically in space.
The pollution lifts you off your feet.
Anyway, so yeah, we get the helicopter fight, and that's pretty cool.
Yep, it's pretty cool.
It does communicate a sense of scale because it's over that enormous, mostly CG crowd, but like you know, it's the establishing shots are get you a long way there, and then when they're kind of flying around, it starts to become a little bit Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace, yeah.
It doesn't register right away. Like part of the danger of this sequence is the helicopter's going to massacre like a square full of people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't buy this helicopter scene. It's just it's like a classic average James Bond opening, and then we get like a fucking horrible song.
Yeah, so he gets the one thing he's able to get is a ring with the Spectre logo.
The Spectre logo, it goes in.
And now let's talk about Sam Smith's writings on the wall.
Don't like the song.
Yeah, my hot take is this song sucks independently of this movie. But in the movie, with the visuals, that Daniel Kleinman still doing it, I believe.
Yes, he is.
Him and Sam Mendes, I don't know. The visuals have such a power in these opening credits that it elevates the song.
I really don't like it when they cut to Raul Silva.
Porn.
The octopus porn's a little weird, but whatever. I like a lot of the visuals, like with the eyes. I don't like it when it cuts to Vesper dying and Raul Silva.
The Spider-Man 2 intro.
Spider-Man 2, yeah.
Yeah, as it does the Spider-Man 2 episode, as literally the song's going like, a million shots.
That's when I start to get really worried in the movie theater.
The thing is, in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I know why they're doing it, because this was the first time they had a different actor play the character, and they're trying to just go like, this is the same guy. And then here it's just like, we don't want to establish anything in the movie, so let's remember these people.
They're establishing the whole movie is retrofitting an Spectre arc onto the previous movie.
Oh, it makes it feel less unique to me to try to tie it into all
That's
these...
a different point. My point is that's why they're in the opening, is because that's the movie's intention. You can dislike the intention, but again, there was a point.
I think that's a fair point, but I will say that, like, I very vividly remember when Daniel Craig is just standing there shirtless. He looks like the lobster from SpongeBob with like women just rubbing him. The entire theater burst out into laughter. It was like first case of like, this movie is trying to be really serious and really not getting there.
And it also kind of looks like they mirrored his face. So
yes, he looks like Obabo.
Yeah, exactly.
the Obama meme where they like mirror his face and he's Obabo. Yeah, the stupid eyes look horrible. Christoph Waltz eyes in like a skeleton with an octopus body. It's not a sentence I thought I'd ever say. It's very odd. It's not cool. It's weird. It's
I like when all the eyes are like in like the shards of glass kind of
I do
thing.
like that. That reminded me of Metropolis. Following with our Fritz Lang, or no, what'd you say?
Oh,
more,
yeah,
more
when
now.
she's dancing and there's all the different eyes. Yeah, this movie really is an expressionist, dreamlike logic to it that I really dig.
Yeah, it's basically a German expressionist nightmare.
I mean, they did make that movie. It was called Skyfall.
No, it was called Casino Royale 1967, guys. Good lord.
Right.
Okay.
That is true.
That's
right.
The biggest but I will say, Sam Smith, no hate towards Sam Smith. I don't really know any of their music.
Really? You avoided their... It was everywhere.
I know. I haven't avoided their music. I just haven't, like, listened to any of it. Just, I haven't gotten into it. This song is so mopey and boring, and I hate the vocals.
Sam Smith, I like their songs, okay. I just find them really obnoxious. Like...
I like their songs. They're just bad. And
when they won the Oscar, they're just like, I'm the first gay person to win. And I'm no, you're not.
Such a confidently stupid thing to say.
I read an article a few months ago by Sir Ian McKellen, and he said that no openly gay man had ever won an Oscar. And if this is the case, even if it isn't the case...
That was like a Pierce Brosnan level of confident idiot.
And they're always seeking validation, and they're mopey, and it just seems childish, and it comes out in this song where it just feels weird. But I also kind of like it because I get very mixed with Sam Smith.
Yeah, I don't know any other work. This song puts me the fuck to sleep. I don't like listening to it. It's pretty much the only Bond song that I don't have on my Spotify playlist.
I like making fun of the vocals of this song because it feels like a song written in 15 minutes.
We'll get into this next episode, but I hate that the Academy has validated Eon Productions for just trying to do mopier versions of Skyfall for their song.
Yes. Much like the movie itself, they took all of the wrong lessons from Skyfall.
What's worse, I think, is that Skyfall is so good because it has bombast. It has energy.
It builds.
Writing on the Wall and No Time to Die do not have that bombast. They're just mopey. In this case, because of the visuals, it marries well with the intense visuals of a shredded dude in fire about to hang dong and blow people's brains out at a funeral. It works fine, but on its own, it does not prep you for an adventure movie.
Yeah. Then we get our M scene.
Debriefing scene where M just goes like, what the hell were you doing in Mexico? You blew up a block. And he's like, I thwarted we get a bunch of exposition because we...
Well, I love that M opens with, you had no authority to kill a man.
Take your time, 007, but in 5 minutes, the head of the Joint Security Service is going to walk through that door, and I've got to explain to him how
You blew up half a bloody block. Well, better half a block than a whole stadium full of people.
you had no authority. None.
Yeah. It's not like you have a license for that.
Well, as we later learn is that you have a license to kill, and it's also a license to not kill.
A license to kill is also a license not to kill.
Whatever the fuck that means.
Well, we all have a license to not kill, I guess.
Well, yeah, it's not like MI6 goes, congrats, you've done 2 kills. Here's a license to kill whoever you want, as much as you want.
Isn't that what license to kill means?
Yeah, okay, so anyway, we gotta get through this or else we're gonna be here all day. I'm exasperated by this movie. Like, already in this opening scene, we have like a million things of exposition. We have like 2 minutes of explaining what we just watched in the previous scene. Oh, by the way, MI6 is merging with MI5.
Ink's barely dry on this. Ink's barely dry on this.
Here's C.
I've never gotten that joke of like, I think I'll call you C.
Congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you.
Suppose we should call you C now?
No. Max, please.
No, I think I'll call you C.
Why?
Because in the English language, there's a swear word that starts with a C.
Is it the C word joke that then they later completely
Yeah, they do
ruin?
it later too. They come back to it.
And now we know what C stands for.
See, that shows the evolution. Is at the beginning of the movie, James Bond calls him C as disrespect, and M is like, respect him. And then at the end of the movie, M is making the C joke to show that now he's on Bond's side.
But Troy, that's incorrect because he's not trying to like get Bond on his side, because M is at pretty much every point on screen, he is trying to undermine C.
He's not trying to take him out as the head of the organization. Like, he gets exasperated that Bond is doing things on his own. He's annoyed that Q is aiding him. So, like, yes, M is trying to ride that fine line of being a bureaucrat who doesn't like what his superiors are doing, but just following orders, versus being the cool, badass, independent agent that James Bond is. And M's journey through the movie has become more like Bond.
But we've already seen this in Skyfall.
When did he do it in Skyfall?
Well, he's pretty renegade because you realize, like, oh, he's not just a bureaucrat. Oh, yeah. Q and Tanner are, like, tracking Bond. And he goes, like, what the hell are you guys doing? And they think he's going to rat on him. He's like, no, you should do this. I'm all for this. See, I'm cool. We know that he's capable of this already.
One line. It's not a whole journey.
I don't know. Well, anyway, the fucking James Bond has his first official sexual harassment scene with Moneypenny. There turns out to be not a sexual harassment scene because he's not invited her to his apartment for sex. He's inviting her to show her an M video, I guess.
Question, I guess, because we have to bring this up now. Moneypenny brings a box of effects and says, this is from all that was left of Skyfall.
Yes.
How soon do we think this movie takes place after Skyfall? Is this like right after?
I think it's a direct sequel, Quantum of Solace style.
So what's interesting then is if you factor in No Time to Die, I think Skyfall is the only Daniel Craig movie to not be a direct sequel to the previous Bond movie.
Well, yeah, because on Quantum of Solace is his second mission, and then Skyfall is like, you old fuck. I really love that we see Bond's apartment, and if it looks like he just moved in.
Well, he did, because they sold his apartment in Skyfall, remember?
Right.
Oh, we've sold your flat. Put your things into storage. Standard procedure on the death of an unmarried employee with no next of kin.
Like, so this literally is.
I'm choosing to not remember that and just having that be it's like the people where it's like, I put everything into crypto and now I live like this. I put everything into MI6 and now I live like this.
It's like, it's a damn bitch, you live like this. It's that me.
Right. We also get introduced to Smart Blood.
Smart Blood. Microchips in your bloodstream allows us to track your movements in the field.
That sounds marvelous.
Yes, I did write down Smart Blood Spider-Man connection.
Yes, this was the time. This was the time of Smart Blood. Now, in an earlier draft of this script, M was going to have someone, maybe this was when Tanner was going to be the traitor. Mendez wanted that Smart Blood to have like all the agents' names of like every Secret Service thing injected into James Bond. And then in the climax, Blofeld was going to take his blood.
Right, he's got the list in his blood.
To get the name.
That's why they call him Blood.
I think that's right. No, that is right. That's what I was reading in the original script.
Yeah.
But they kept keeping the Smart Blood thing until it amounts to nothing.
Yeah, he's been tagged like a pet.
Yeah, but they did that in Casino Royale too. So this is not the
They
first
did that
time
in
they've
Casino
done-
Royale, but it wasn't really like they actually paid it off because they cut open his arm and they break the thing, and so now he's completely on his own. Here, what is the point of the Smart Blood? They have a whole scene where it's just like, we injected nanobots into your bloodstream. I can monitor your whereabouts. And where does it come back up? It comes back up when Q finds him in the Alps.
It's come back in the next movie too. With
yeah, that's right. Because his blood just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, no. And then he decides to retire from active duty, and they're like, don't find me. But I'm like, but you still got Smart Blood in your system. Like, they'll find you.
He's becoming stupider by the movie.
No,
honestly.
it's okay. As long as he stays smarter than everyone he works with, he
may
fine.
be stupid, but his blood is smart.
Then they never figured out how to rework the Smart Blood thing into the movie. And people are just asking, like, where does this go to? And then they're like, we're addressing it in the next draft. And they never figured it out. They forgot about it.
Have you heard, Moneypenny? I've got blood that makes me invincible. No, James, that's not. I can never die, Moneypenny.
Okay, we did skip over a plot point, though, that he plays a tape in his apartment where he's like, he just found this thing, and it's M saying, if I die, you need to kill this man.
If anything happens to me, 007, I need you to do something. Find a man called Marco Sciarra. Kill him.
Who is the man he shot in Mexico City at the end of the funner.
Yeah.
You figure out that Bond wasn't actually Rogue. He was actually under orders from the previous M,
M's
who wanted
ghost.
him to kill this guy.
Yeah.
The dead will speak. It was intentional.
Which I do like that he still has this sort of like twisted loyalty to this woman, you know?
But she's his mother. They said this like 15 times during Spectre.
No, I
that
said
she's his
I
mother.
like that. Because
Yeah,
it's
we
like
like that.
they've established that he's got like this fucking like Oedipus thing with this woman.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's almost a reverse Book of Henry situation where the
It is.
mother leaves a tape for
Yeah,
her son.
yeah.
Let's go back to the dead speak.
Wait.
No,
Let's
no,
go back
you
to
said-
the
no, 'cause you
first
said-
frame of the movie. Let's
First of all, you're both still getting it wrong.
Whatever.
No, the dead are alive. Okay, so it pays off because M gives him this mission. Yeah, that's a thing that happens in the movie. What if it just began with him going like, Bond, Will, fuck? Like, yes, that's another thing that happens
that's
in the
totally,
movie.
yeah. It just starts with the letter saying pussy in bio.
Pussy in Goldfinger. That's correct. That has a point. It's
Yeah,
true.
No, I totally agree with you. Completely pointless. Like,
All right, let's move on with the
Okay,
movie.
can we move on? Okay. The one other thing about the Smart Blood, I was like, Q is like laughing at his own jokes.
Oh, that was a corpse. Ben Whishaw apparently did that on the day, at least once during this movie. He laughed at his own joke.
I believe I said bring it back in one piece, not bring back one piece. Anyway.
Which I think is fun. It's in a reality full of one-liners. Q thinks he's funny. And
I like this new take on Q, where now Q is the cheeky one and Bond is the grumpy
that's
old
fun.
one. I like the role reversal.
That's fine.
But yeah, he's basically going rogue and he takes the Aston Martin.
I do think it's funny that the Daniel Craig incarnation of James Bond is the one that has like a Batmobile. Like in the Connery films, he had the Aston Martin for like 5 minutes, did not care, did not look back.
Well, he drove it around a lot too because it was a standard issue vehicle, but then he kept getting more because people like having gadgets in the thing, and everybody remembers the Aston Martin, and now they're riding off of nostalgia because of Skyfall.
Because the best gadget ever is the invisible car in Die Another Day as well.
That should come back.
That should totally come back.
Actually, the invisible car has been in every single frame of every single James Bond movie.
That's the brilliance of it. It's like Blofeld. It's always been there. We just never noticed.
I'm imagining the end of No Time to Die, the invisible car like drives.
Yeah. It just crashes into Rami Malek. Set up and pay up. No, Paul, but like I will say, the reason why I think I've been so hung up on these small details, the text, the gun barrel, all the stupid shit, the Sam Smith, is because literally this entire middle chunk of the movie, I don't know what the fuck to talk about. There's nothing interesting going on here.
We're only like 20 minutes into the movie and we've talked about it frame by frame.
Dan's trying to give us permission to just skip to the end, which I'm thankful for. I'm appreciative.
No, we got so much stuff to cover. The Bond and Moneypenny interplay during the sequence.
Yeah, he goes to Rome. He gets his dick with Monica Bellucci. It's also horribly boring.
I love that part where he's at the funeral. It's all very stoically Roman line. And again, it's like Bond coming face to face.
Oh, yeah,
with
Rome
death.
is pretty, but...
He's going to talk to the widow of the guy he shot. And again, you get another oneer as we journey through her dark apartment.
But this is not a character. Like, who...
Well, again, Monica Bellucci is an older woman. She's the widow of this guy he shot, and she is anticipating death. So in some ways, I feel Monica Bellucci is the last hurrah of every single Bond girl you've seen in the Craig era, from that woman he met at the beach to before Madeline Swan.
I mean, she's the last one-night stand, I believe.
Yes, she is the last one-night stand.
Troy, I appreciate that this character is so important because it's a way to make a woman live instead of just die in his arms. Except she leaves half an hour into the movie and she is never mentioned again. And
oh my God, Bond had sex with a girl in the first hour of a movie and it was never mentioned again.
But we spent so long with this lady.
Yeah,
and
no, there's a oneer dedicated to her.
Blofeld later in the movie goes, why do you think every woman you've ever interacted with died? But none of the women in Spectre die. After movies where every woman except Olga Kurylenko that James Bond went near died, in this movie, he is saving people. He is stopping a cycle of abuse and mistreatment. And he's getting to know Monica Bellucci as a person, as opposed to all the anonymous...
He's asking her questions about her husband as he's undressing her.
Well, yeah, he's like interrogating her while seducing her an hour after the funeral of her husband.
It's so awkward.
Just like the woman he had sex with in Casino Royale who died in the hammock, who he was interrogating about her husband. He is taking back a situation he fucked up.
Yeah, but he didn't pick up that woman at like a funeral.
At a funeral?
Funerals are insane. The chicks are so horny, it's not even fair.
And also, that scene is like a minute long. It's not like fucking 10 minutes.
Because that scene has no emotional ambiance.
Neither does this.
Ambiance.
I love Monica. I think Monica in this movie is the hottest any woman has ever looked in.
And anyone who says that she's too old, go fuck yourself.
No, she's the hottest thing ever. But, I mean, she's given great performances in the past. This ain't one of them. She's very bad in this.
Well, I think in this movie, like, she plays exactly what she needs to do, which is nothing.
You know? Yeah, no. I just enjoyed the similarities around death, but yes.
Okay, and then she gives him the directions to go to a Spectre meeting, and he just walks in.
Oh, yeah, we're back to the Spectre meetings!
Well, wait, has he sat in on a Spectre meeting before?
No, he hasn't, but we haven't had the giant roundtable Spectre meetings in a while, so...
No, I did like seeing it again, but more than anything, I love when the bodyguard asks James Bond who he is. James Bond goes, Io sono Topolino.
Sono Topolino.
Like, there's something about Daniel Craig saying the word Topolino that is magical to me.
I love Mickey Mouse. Once again, James Bond affirming he is a cultural icon in universe by connecting
or it's a reference to a much
Mickey
better
Mouse.
movie.
Yeah. What, the Mickey Mouse and the Three Musketeers?
No, I was talking about Last Crusade.
And if you are a Scottish lord, then I am Mickey Mouse. How dare he?
Io sono Topolino.
Sono Topolino.
Yeah, no, I love how it's shot like an Eyes Wide Shut party.
Yeah, we're into the meeting of the lizard people or something.
Yeah, and I like this, but the whole, like, you know how we mentioned last episode how, like, Raul Silva's introduction is so great because it's not your cliched supervillain that's in shadows at the head of a table. This is that.
No, but I like that. Okay, I will say this. I do like the entrance of Blofeld because you need something.
Troy is so happy. There's music to his ears.
I do like how theatrical his entrance is and how he's covered in shadow. And if you're bringing back Blofeld, I am totally fine with it being like a stock way to bring him back.
If there was a payoff to this character. If it's like, first he's in darkness and you don't know what he's about, and then it turns out to be an amazing, crazy character. But no, he's so boring the entire way.
The payoff is he's in darkness, but when he sees James Bond, he's in light, which is great. I love that visual storytelling. That's amazing.
It is visual storytelling that it amounts to a terrible twist and nothing.
And a bad performance by one of the best living actors.
So the guy at the head of the table, there's a guy there, and he's like, I'm gonna kill this guy, you fuckers. And then they're like, yeah, but you fucked up, so here's...
Or they go like, any challengers? And
Yes.
Dave Bautista presumably takes his place even though he doesn't speak except for shit.
I love just how everyone's watching it, like that creepy stillness while he kills the guy. Like, it's something so eerie that I don't think we've really had in Bond movies up to this point.
Yeah, no, then Christoph Waltz does one of the worst things I've ever seen. Well, maybe not one of the worst things. It's not 9/11, you know, but it's like he starts taunting James Bond. He turns, he goes, "Welcome, James."
Welcome, James. It's been a long time. Finally, here we are. What took you so long?
And then he goes, "Cuckoo."
Cuckoo.
And I'm like, it's such cringe. It's so fucking cringe whenever he does the cuckoo.
I love my third man references. And when
I think that's what they're going for too. They're not doing it well. Just because they have ideas and attempts and references.
It doesn't mean the execution is good.
But see, here's the issue with that argument is you're going, it doesn't work for me. But then I'm like, it worked for me. So then we're suddenly at an impasse.
I guess I can argue with that. If you liked it, then that's okay.
All we can do is go to the next scene and start the conversation over again.
But the race car scene, like, this is great, where Hinks and like them are like chasing Bond through Italy.
I have to step in. I'm sorry.
All right, Paul, the floor is yours.
I was feeling this a little bit during the Mexico bit, but then when he's on the phone having a casual conversation, but it's not like a gag. Right? He's doing this car chase and then it just kind of keeps going and he's talking on the phone and then he hangs up the phone and it just kind of keeps going. Like, the thing about Skyfall is that was definitely like an unconventional approach to action, right? The Sam Mendes kind of just like straight ahead, methodical, procedural thing where things don't, like, they just kind of start and then they stop and it's just kind of like very linear.
But there were also interesting ideas there, like the whole silhouette fight in Skyfall is different.
And it's got enough kind of swag to make it work. This really feels like, I don't know what the conversation was, if they felt the script slipping away or that there was more pressure to go in a different direction. Like to make something a little more high octane.
They should just be having a boring conversation in the middle of an action
Exactly.
scene.
Well, the thing is, you still have these kind of very long, complicated, methodical action sequences, but they're just kind of cut a little more choppy, and the Thomas Newman music is just telling you, this is exciting, this is exciting, this is exciting, for like 10 minutes at a time.
Well, I'll give you the perfect analogy for this. Some people have complained in the past that I talk during sex. And not talk like dirty talk, like I chit chat, you know. I talk about like, did you see what is going on in the middle?
I've said this complaint many times.
Yeah, Troy said it to me. Jake said it to you three have said it to me. And I never really understood I'm like, what? You're just enhancing the experience if you are talking about something interesting. But now I know what they're talking about when I watch this, because it's like you try to be in the action, you try to be in the moment, and then James Bond is like, yeah, can you look up this guy Franz and you know?
I will have a hot take. I agree with this. Watching the movie this time, I did notice. I'm like, yeah, the pacing's a lot slower, and like there is this almost what I think Spectre does that's interesting is it kind of neuters its own action a lot of the times because Bond is like so super capable. He's able to have like a conversation while he's doing a car fight. Like everything is almost after the effect. And I'm like, yes, if you were to come to this movie for an action movie, you would be disappointed, I think. But as a dreamy exploration of Bond's psyche, where everything is kind of in a haze, and we're gonna get to a great example of this in the climax in the desert.
As an action movie, it's bad, and as a character study, it's even worse.
It's even worse. It's unforgivable as a character study because this is the same problem with Quantum of Solace of like, okay, we want to really internalize the problems of James Bond, but the thing is that they haven't figured out what exactly those problems are, and we never have him reacting, talking about it, or doing anything.
It's the same problem as in Skyfall, but in Skyfall we have rad action, so we
have rad action, and that actually feels like a escapist fun. Here, it's just like, I think it's probably Sam Mendes justifies it in himself because like, okay, James Bond is effortlessly cool at everything he does, and he should be like nonchalant about everything. So like this action scene comes on, he can have a casual conversation with Moneypenny. What I really think is it's a lame excuse to go like, we need to explain what is happening in the plot, and we can fit it in here.
A little of column A, a little of column B. Makes a tasty sandwich for me.
I mean, if you like diarrhea sandwiches,
like you do, Jake. You like a view to a.
Well, yeah, but that's a different kind of diarrhea sandwich. There's a diarrhea sandwich that knows it's a diarrhea sandwich. I know what I'm getting. It knows fully well what it is.
No, you don't understand, Jake. Spectre is the four-dimensional chess subversion of itself before it was even made.
Yeah, it's the Freddy got fingered of James Bond movies. It's being ironically bad.
Like, at least with the other ones, they knew what they were.
Sure they did. The James Bond movies have never had a personality crisis of any kind. But the parachute thing at the end of this chase, I love how he like blows out of the car in a parachute and then he just glides down and he's walking down the street.
And then he like clicks it undone. I do like that moment.
Too. Good evening. It has small moments. It's worse because it's reminding me of what fun looks like, and then it just goes back to.
Because I enjoy parts of it. If I hated all of it,
because it's half a second of me going like, huh, and then another 20 minutes of absolute boredom. Speaking of which, this next ungodly long, boring scene with Mr. White.
Is before the Mr. White scene, don't Tanner and M have that little moment where the 9 eyes thing is getting explained?
Well, yes, I wrote down M is now very concerned about British government officials abusing their power, which is very funny to me.
Yes, M has gone woke.
This is not who we are. We don't spy on people.
We can't invade people's privacies with cameras. We have men to break into their houses and kill them to do that.
How dare you, us, a spy organization in a spy movie, try to spy.
But I do think it's interesting because, again, it's the idea of the gallant band of knights against the encroaching modernism.
Wait, again? When was the first time that it was a gallant band of knights?
Exactly. It's never been a gallant band of knights, but we are rebuilding the myth. And we're making the myth better.
Rebuilding the myth that didn't exist in the first place.
This is literally the British government. These are horrible, horrible people.
Look, I know that this film may have come out shortly after a different spy movie directed by Matthew Vaughn in which spies gather around a fucking table with a bunch of King Arthur references. But that's not this movie.
Yeah.
Yes, it's better.
It's on par.
All right, let's talk about Mr. White.
I love this scene. This is one of my favorite scenes in any James Bond movie.
Boring.
Mr. White. He finally reconnects with Mr. White in his little hat in a little cottage, and they talk about the nature of death. And you realize this kind of mysterious figure who was like this wraith at the beginning of James Bond's career is just a guy with a daughter. And you know what the genius of this scene is?
What?
Is that it brings to life one of my favorite scenes, my other favorite scenes in the Bond series, which is James Bond explaining to Octopussy how her father died in Octopussy.
It is reminiscent of that, yeah.
Yes, now we finally get to see James Bond in that situation. And again, it's coming face to face with the specter of who he is. It's realizing that Mr. White is his future if he continues down this road.
If that's what you got from it, that's news to me. I just thought of it as like wrapping up loose ends and having a nice scene where Bond has to barter for information.
Did we say a nice scene?
Okay,
Play the tape.
This is not a 0 out of 10 movie.
I have to admit, I enjoyed the scene. I think it's well acted. I do not think the implications of the scene work on the way that Troy is thinking of. I think in isolation with the context of Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, it is a nice ending to that arc. I don't think it has any actual effect on James Bond as a character.
No, it's closure for Vesper, Jake.
You're saying it as a joke, but Troy is dead serious.
No, but here's the thing with Troy. The thing I disagree with you on, I disagree with the fact that it's like him looking in a mirror, because that would require Bond to actually like react.
He does react.
He does not.
No, he doesn't react here, but later in the movie, when Blofeld plays Mr. White's tape, he's able to look at Mr. White shoot himself.
I am going to get to that scene later on because it does not work.
Here's the thing. It's like, if Sam Mendes is trying to do all the things that you're saying that this is trying to do,
this is 4-dimensional chess.
Yeah, it should be a little clear. Like, this isn't a Robert Altman's Three Women. This is a James Bond movie. It should be, the theme should be a little more.
Okay, but I'm going to point out that earlier in a previous episode in Casino Royale, I may have pointed out that it's like a movie can have different interpretations, and the fine line is, does a movie being open for interpretation mean that it's bad or that it's not?
Casino Royale, he's very clearly reacting.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. There are things that happen to Bond, and we have an idea because it emphasizes his reactions to things. Like when he sees the dead woman in the hammock, we see a reaction or lack of reaction, and it focuses on it. It pushes into his face. So we're meant to think about, what is he thinking? When he kills those guys, we are left with him in the aftermath cleaning up. And the movie is asking us, what is he thinking? Here, we don't get that at all.
But the whole point of Casino Royale was this was his first time doing any of those things. So you have the reaction. With this movie, he's intentionally very deadpan in a lot of his things. And it's kind of trying to figure out, to the end of the movie is, can the humanity of this guy return? And so for
that's what it's about at the very end. For the rest,
but it's building to that
point. In the scene that we're talking about, though, I am still trying to grapple with the implications of, like, I'm open to the idea that James Bond can have an arc in a movie, as we have kind of seen.
Yes.
At this point in this movie, he confronts this man who has basically killed Vesper, right?
Yeah.
And hands him the gun to shoot himself. And at the end of his monologue, he does, and he turns away to not watch the guy shoot himself, which is out of character.
Yes, it is.
Well, he just had a whole conversation with him where he established this guy's humanity. So now he is
humanity. Oh my God, this guy has a daughter. Yeah. What is he, a moron?
Well, no, it's an instinctual human reaction. It's very subtle. Now,
so you're saying like this is the armor cracking or something?
Yes, it's the armor cracking. Because then Hinks comes back wearing the same silly little hat that James Bond does. He comes to that very scene, and his armor is not cracked. He's just looking at it as a place to look for clues, while James Bond had a very human reaction
to it. But then James Bond just murders Hinks.
Yeah, he just murders more people.
No, Madeline Swan helps him murder Hinks. It's a team up.
And then he shoots people.
This is to me the difference between, I feel like, valid interpretation and then just reaching. Because it's like, it's a balancing act with a Bond movie, right?
You're saying it's reaching when we've just pointed out the movie is pointing out the themes. Having him turn away from him is showing, as Paul said, this is out of character for James.
But they don't really address it.
Yes, they do address it, because later in the movie, it comes back when he tells Madeline not to look at him shoot himself. You can't say the movie doesn't do something when the movie almost too obviously does a thing later in the movie that is a direct parallel to a scene in the movie.
I would say is far too ambiguous.
What?
Let's get on with it!
Okay, so he goes to a health clinic to meet up with Madeline Swan,
who he knows because he was told to protect her by Mr. White.
Yes, he was told to protect her by Mr. White, and she will give him the location of where to find the info on Spectre.
And now we're back in On Her Majesty's Secret Service territory.
Yes, it is evoking On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Let's spend some time talking about Léa Seydoux as Madeline Swan, the woman that
Bond falls in love with
to the point where she becomes more important
than Vesper.
More important than Vesper, and more important than his job. He will give up his job, his livelihood, his personality for. And how does the relationship play out? It is a wet fucking fart of a fucking relationship.
We're in Majesty's secret territory here, but Majesty's Secret Service had Tracy, Casino Royale had Vesper, Léa Seydoux is a wonderful actress. She is the hottest a woman has ever looked in this movie, but this character sucks. They have zero chemistry together. She's giving him nothing.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. I don't know, the casting of Léa Seydoux automatically, on one hand, you have Daniel Craig, a blonde hair, blue eye, monotone, gruff of a man, against a monotone, blonde hair, blue eye, gruff of a woman.
Yeah.
And you get no chemistry because there, in theory, you could probably fix like some of the bad character choices with at least like the right casting.
Is it me or they look like cousins?
All blonde, blue-eyed people look the same.
They're both monotone. They're both underplaying it extremely because at least with like Vesper, like she had a little bit more energy than James Bond and was like cutting into him. And then here it's just like they're bored.
You shouldn't stay.
Well, you shouldn't look like that.
So here's my argument for it. I love the repartee relationships. I think they're great. I think people love those relationships for a lot of fun. People bouncing off each other, giving each other shit. Normally, I would argue if you were to make a platonic ideal of this movie, you would want a relationship with more of that spark. You would want them to be more different. For what this movie is trying to do is kind of setting up Bond with a parallel of this woman has been traumatized just like he has. And they've gone through the same experiences. I actually think Madeline Swan works very well for the Craig incarnation. Instead of being a woman who frictions against him, kind of giving him someone who basically is a girl version of himself.
But then we get really boring scenes.
Oh, I love their scenes.
And I will say that she's not really a girl version of himself because she's not a killer. She was raised by a killer and she hates that lifestyle, but she's able...
Exactly. She has one key difference.
I could be open to the argument that at least what this movie might be going for is that like she's just further along the arc than he is as far as like, I know guns, but guns are bad.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, she's in some way therapist Bond. Now, could they have done a therapist like Dr. Chase Meridian in Batman Forever, where she still is doing quips about his mental state? They could have done that.
But the result of the matter is you have a bunch of boring scenes with two very dry, monotone people.
Yeah, the acting's poor, the directing's poor, and that's my thing. Like, I don't even want them to be frictioning like him and Vesper. Like, they could just be hanging out, having a good time. But like, if you've ever seen the reality TV show Love is Blind, you know, like that's a TV show where two people that have never seen each other are put in pods, and they just with their conversation, they gotta make out if they're good for each other or not. And it's like, just by the conversations, there's like, you can tell like, oh, there's a spark here, you know? There's like, they're getting along, there's chemistry here. Here, there's not that. There's no spark, there's no chemistry.
I love the clinical diagnosis scene where he goes in and she's like, why are you at this? And he's like, drink too much, probably too much.
How much alcohol do you consume?
Too much.
And he's just buzzing through all her questions. That's a lot of fun for me, where it's just like, they hate each other.
Well, that's the other problem that I think does come as the movie progresses, is that, of course, they start in there like friction in theory. And then when she turns around, it basically just flips out of nowhere because he kills Dave Bautista and then they start fucking and that's it.
They bone.
No, they're already flirting. They're flirting at the dinner before he kills Dave Bautista. They're flirting a little bit with the gun. It is a gradual process.
We get like kind of the warmed over leftovers of Vesper, you know.
Sure.
Faint echo.
Potato.
Potato.
It's the most unsexy scenario to bone I can imagine. Like in the middle of a dirty like wagon in a train right after killing a wrestler, and then like literally 20 minutes later she's like, I love you, and I'm like, where the fuck
Jan, there are many proud hobos who have boned in dirty compartments on trains. I salute you, proud hobos who in the depths of the Great
Listen,
Depression were able to make
I've
trained
done it
sex
many
work.
times myself. I regret it.
You were talking the whole time.
Here's the thing. It's like, it'd be fine if this is like part of the course for a Bond movie where the relationship is just like, oh, this is the romance for the movie, moving on to the next one. But this is the woman that changes Bond's heart and makes him want to give up being an agent.
There's no shower scene like in Casino Royale.
Why does it have to be exactly like Casino Royale? We have that movie. This is a different one.
Because that movie did this well. This movie's trying to do what that did, but...
The equivalent of the shower scene, we'll get to it, is the hotel room scene. Where they revisit where her dad, like, took her every
She
year.
gets
and then
drunk and he follows a mouse? Like,
yeah.
It's a residue. It's a residue of the scene where it's like they're both broken down.
Yeah, they don't talk about any... The dialogue in this movie might as well be blah, 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 blah. They're saying nothing.
Okay, so could we talk about like to how we get to these later scenes, which we're skipping over, is that there's another very long, protracted ski shootout thing.
Yeah.
In which she says, "You moron, you led them to me," which does keep the theme of worst spy ever. I'll give it
exactly. It's once again she's been sucked back into her father's world.
The scene, this big set piece, again, is the kind of thing where I'm like, this scene is not poorly made. It's very impressive, but I've seen all this before so many times, and there's like nothing new here. It feels so paint by numbers to me.
Okay.
Yeah, this is putting Paul to sleep.
So they get to Morocco.
Well, they have to figure out what the L'Americaine is. Oh, also, Q is in the scene. Q is part of the action again. Hello, License to Kill.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the bigger leaps of one of these movies where Q's just like, I'm here. I think he makes some joke about protein shakes.
Yeah, he makes a joke about protein shakes because they don't serve alcohol at the clinic. And he tells them, oh, I'll order this terrible soupy shake for you. And then Bond is like, here's this ring. Can you put it on your magic scanner and tell me what it says? And from scanning the ring, he learns that there's DNA from Silva, Quantum, and Le Chiffre on the ring.
Oberhauser is still alive. The ring proves it. And it seems they were all part of one organization. Le Chiffre, Quantum, Sciarra, your friend Mr. Silva. Do you know who links them all?
Him.
Exactly.
And you're just like, what, do they jizz on it or something?
I fully admit this somewhat goes over my head too. I think the implication, my guess, is that they were all the same position at Spectre. So once they died, the next person got their ring. And they were like,
whoa.
It is not communicated well, but they say like we can track the whoever touched this ring, and I'm like,
it's a little messy. I'm not gonna fully defend this plot development.
That's the thing. Like, this movie's very poorly told. Like, things are very poorly communicated on a storytelling level, to the point where I literally check out. I'm like, this movie's saying nothing to me, and I am disconnected.
Before we fully move on from it, I do want to point out, I think it's very funny that Daniel Craig is completely agitated at the health clinic when they don't have alcohol. And he's like on edge.
Yeah,
it is very funny.
Yeah, and he's finally embraced the martini shaken, not stirred by this point.
Vodka martini, shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, like that's now the Vesper, yeah.
So then the train, right?
No, we get that lovely hotel room scene.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most bizarre sequences in one of these movies.
This is like Altman's Three Women.
Yes, it is.
Then you start to realize why Sam Mendes avoided doing an actual like main Bond girl in Skyfall, because he sucks at romance. It turns out L'Americaine is a place. It is a hotel where Mr. White used to hang out and do his Spectre shit at.
Yeah.
And they hang out there. They're trying to find leads, and then they get drunk together.
Yeah.
And then she says, "Don't try to fuck me.
Come anywhere near me, and I'll kill you."
I don't doubt it.
And then he just sits in a chair and points his gun at a mouse.
What's it you working for?
Ciao, Mickey Mouse.
Until he realizes there's a hollowed out hole in the wall, and you're just like, is this supposed to be relationship building? This is off-putting and weird.
Yes, it's off-putting and weird. My vibe.
He finds a big VHS tape that says Vesper's interrogation.
And he doesn't even bother.
He doesn't watch it. Yeah.
Watching it. Oh, and this is another thing that's in the Sony emails. They're just like, we bring back the Vesper tape. and it goes nowhere. Why?
That's somewhat valid. I do think there is something to be said that he goes into this girl's like childhood memories and he literally rips apart the wall and finds out there was an evil organization living inside the wall of her childhood memory. I like that visual metaphor. It's a fun time for me.
When a James Bond movie has a scene that has the same tone as David Lynch's Rabbits, I'm like, what's going on here? You know, like, it's so...
It is disorienting.
Yeah, it's disorienting, but it's not saying anything. You're just kind of like...
He's going into her psyche, and he's coming to grips with his own psyche when he looks at the mouse.
Yeah, but he never comes to grips with his psyche because you think like a big bombshell in a movie that insists on tying itself to the earlier movies, that this videotape of Vesper that is hidden in a motel in Morocco is going to come back as like, oh, this is a thing that, like, I don't know, Christoph Waltz is going to do to, and it, like, pushes Bond, even though we've already been here, going, like, why am I an agent? Why am I doing this? Or something.
Again, I almost think, while it's nice that we see M again, I actually do think it's nice that we don't get more stuff with Ava Green in the videotape, because that would make the movie more about Vesper.
Then why bring it up?
Yeah, we don't need to make the movie all about Vesper, but why is it there? Just cut that one insert where he picks up the tape. Like, it's a weird loose end.
But why would it not be in Mr. White's thing? Because the whole point is he sees Vesper on the videotape, and then she sees key things about her past on the wall. So they're both coming to grips with their past in this broken down wall in Morocco, and then they come together to try to figure out what's at the core of both their traumas, hence establishing the connection between James and Madeline more.
Okay. However...
Not communicated well.
Communicated to me!
This is just kind of like film school stuff that we would probably argue about back in the day, where it's like, okay, a tape, like, there's more to it because you want to watch it. Like, it was just like a picture of Eva Green on the wall, then you're like, there's Eva, there she is. You know, the end.
As we see later in Blofeld's headquarters, James Bond knows when not to watch tape because he knows it will hurt you.
Point taken. You've done it.
Troy, do you know what you sound like? You sound like the people who make like hour-long video essays about how Quantum of Solace is good.
Jake, what do you think this podcast is? We are those people, Jake.
He's got a point.
We just did that for all the ones except Quantum of Solace.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, Quantum of Solace is bad, though. Yeah, no, they're wrong.
So train.
Oh, yes, the train. I love the train.
To the point of what you were saying, Troy, about the relationship, Madeline Swan, in this hotel bit, she's like sleepy, and then she wakes up and she's groggy, and she's confused, and she's remembering her trauma, and then we cut to the train, and she's trying to be Eva Green, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think she's trying to be
It's like
Eva
poor
Green.
thing. She goes from baby woman to like action.
Which obviously is nothing foreign to this franchise. However,
this is a movie that's trying to insist that it's an actual movie and failing miserably.
Yeah, so basically we already talked about the whole train bit because Dave Bautista, they fight and that's it.
Again, train, been there, done that,
All right,
paint by
so this
numbers.
is great. Again, the culmination to the Bond legend is what goes on trains. Because again, from Russia with Love, we've talked about this, that train sequence is kind of at the core of the Bond cultural psyche. So yes, you have the Bond and Madeline. She knows how to use a gun, kind of wows him because, again, to go to what Paul said earlier about her being farther along on the journey of James, she's like, I know how to do a gun. I'm just over it. And he's like, oh, you can be over it. And then you go to the dinner on the train and he's in the white tux. She's in the dress. They're very fancy, very playing with each other. And then Dave Bautista, who is killing it here as Hanks, he just barrels through and they just wail on each other. This is my favorite train fight in any Bond movie.
More than Spy Who Loved Me?
Yeah, I actually think so. That's
where he electrocutes a man with his teeth?
Yeah, I mean, that's nice, but it's not the raw action that Batista's bringing.
I will say this
here.
is by far the best action sequence in this movie. Like,
yes,
for
it's,
sure.
To me, this feels like all the same. I'm like Marty McFly. Like, I've seen this one before. It's like, this is a rerun.
That's fine.
This is the only one. You know, it's fairly simple. It doesn't bother me that it's like close-up shaky cam because like there's no geography to keep track of anyway, and it doesn't have the score. They're just beating each other up. That's it. It's not like.
Well, in Skyfall they do have music behind them, and
but
there's music at the end.
It's like Dune music. It's like. you know.
Yeah.
It's very different. Like, it's like that's of a piece, and this is very dissonant.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but
what is dissonant is that they start porking like immediately after.
Well, yeah, I love how their part where Bautista, where Hinks gets like choked and then he like gets whipped off the train. Love that disposal.
Oh, when he does the shit. Shoot. And that goodbye to Mr. Hinks. And here's the weird thing about this. Usually, if you introduce an important henchman, they usually come back, but he just doesn't come back and they never address it again.
Well, they weren't going to top that, and I would argue Andrew Scott kind of fulfills that second baddie.
Oh my God, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, again, listeners may notice that we haven't even bothered to talk about the many scenes where we return to M&C talking about the surveillance state.
So boring. What I want to say is like comparing like what worked then versus what doesn't work now. Casino Royale, Vesper sees James Bond murder a man. She's traumatized.
Yeah.
And that builds on their relationship. Here, this character that has very explicitly said, I hate violence because of my dad, is turned on to the point of climax. By seeing
I guess
Mr.
in theory
Hinks.
that's what brings them together because they both are familiar with that world.
But she was a child.
Yeah, deep childhood trauma.
That would bring me back to my trauma and be like, fuck this. And that could be a nice scene to build on their relationship. They could talk about it. They could.
Well, that's the whole problem with Madeline Swan is that, like, yeah, she's a completely different person from when, you know, she was a little kid watching her dad bring like fucking sketchy ass terrorists to her house. You know,
this is daddy's friend Osama.
Like, right, exactly. Like if she was an agent too, then that's something to build on.
But the whole point is she's over the life. And maybe James should start moving past the life. Maybe this is just the rest of
but then why does it turn her on to the point of porking?
People are complicated, Jan.
It's complicated and weird, and Troy likes it.
And actually, that's why Vesper was because that's the thing. Vesper was an enemy agent, but she was traumatized. She wasn't really full of the world. And then you have Madeline Swan, who Bond should be suspicious of because she's Mr. White's daughter, but she's just completely removed from the world. But yet, when she sees the world, she is used to it. It's part of her DNA.
Okay, but she's excited by it?
Yeah.
Sexually?
Yeah.
Here's the thing that communicates it clearer. I would think like, oh, you were an adult that was in this world or you partook in this shit and you got out. That's something clearer that like, oh, that's what Bond sees. You can leave, you know? It's not like a child who didn't really do anything. It's not like she killed people for her dad. She just is like, my dad would bring Osama bin Laden home, and one time I had to get a gun from under the sink.
A man once came to our house to kill my father. He didn't know I was upstairs playing in my bedroom, or that Papa kept a Beretta 9mm under the sink with the bleach. That's why I hate guns.
No, but she knows of the loaded gun, so obviously she was somewhat indoctrinated into that world of violence. I think making her a reformed agent would be a little hat on a hat.
So this character that they've established, like I see Miss Piggy getting turned on by this violence. I don't see this woman. You know?
She's not Xenia Onatop, you know?
Right.
Well, yeah, but it's a different kind of turn on. It's not getting off on the kill. It's the adrenaline rush.
I suppose.
There's a scene in Breaking Bad when Walter White kills someone and he gets so excited that he has sex with Skylar, like very aggressively. But there it works because they very clearly established what kind of character Walter White is. They've established that he has an inferiority complex. This makes him feel powerful. This makes him feel like he stands out. This character, they've established pretty much next to nothing about her personality. So it's just weird.
It's all open for you to read into it, I suppose. Okay.
I guess that's the brilliance of it.
Talk about that they just kind of show up at this secret base, and I really felt like I missed something.
It's a very matter-of-fact trip to the Sahara.
Now this is where you get really dreamlike, where you have where the dreamlike nature of it actually works because you have the Bentley coming out of the desert, I guess. Like, I am going to give Troy a little bit of credit here. Where
this is when it becomes a subversive masterpiece.
I'm like, well, and it's something that I'm like, this is a weird Bond thing. I'm like, okay.
No, I'll agree with you and Troy here. The whole like we're plopping you in the middle of the desert. There's an evil layer there. I love the evil layer. I like the weird modernist, like tech bro look of it.
Yeah, it's Dr. No again, you know?
To me, the best scene in the movie is that fucking scene with the meteorite. Because that feels like something out of like a Kafka like movie, you know, like a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's in communication with the introduction of Dr. No in Dr. No with like the giant fish.
Yeah, but this is like creepy and eerie, and Christoph Waltz is coming out, and then he comes into the light, and I'm like, what the fuck is he wearing? I'm like, what are those? Like, what is this fit? It's hideous. It's like,
he's got like the flood pants and the
he looks chubby. He's got little like
You're just like, I hate him. He has a stupid face.
He stinks and I don't like him.
Yeah.
He's kind of dressed like Hillary.
He's dressed like Hillary. He's wearing no socks. I'm like, what the fuck?
I was mainly focused on the performance of Christoph Waltz.
Which is nothing.
Which is nothing. Him trying to be steely. I mean, I'm not really familiar with his European work as a younger actor, but obviously he made his name being very big in 2 Tarantino movies.
Well, because in Inglourious Bastards, he's like one of the best villains of all time because he's very nice, very polite, and on the flip of a dime, he explodes and he becomes a murder maniac. In this, he's just talking. He's not polite. He's no murder maniac. He's nothing.
I enjoy Christoph Waltz's performance as Blofeld. But yes, it is very much, I don't want to say autopilot Waltz, but it is autopilot Waltz.
Yes.
As a result, he feels a little bit lost. At least as an audience member, you're kind of like, what are we supposed to hang our hat on here? You know, it's clearly a choice. Because, like, when he's talking about the childhood, he really wants to go off.
Well, what he is talking about is insane and makes no sense and is bizarre. And it's just like, yes, I am this. I am your brother.
He's a counterpart to the Daniel Craig Bond. He's an emotionally stunted Blofeld for an emotionally stunted Bond.
So we end up with this movie with these 3 people giving, like, identically bland
stoic stoic people.
And we can call it a subversive masterpiece.
I also need to mention the funniest fucking thing ever is that Photoshop picture of baby Daniel Craig.
It looks like shit.
And baby Christoph Waltz. It just looks like Daniel Craig now, but with no wrinkles.
He's so happy in the picture.
You know what it looks like? It looks like our thumbnail for A View to a Kill.
Yeah.
How I put the old man Roger Moore, but it's not in quite the right, his head movement doesn't quite match his body. That's what it looks like.
It is remarkable that, like, consistently in Hollywood films, I mean, Photoshop has existed for quite a while now, and this is a consistent problem.
And it's somehow worse in this movie.
No matter what the budget. I mean, I guess we didn't mention that this movie costs like $260 million or something.
Yeah, this is like one of the most expensive movies ever made.
But no, it's so funny. If you watch like movies from like the 30s that like Joan Crawford and Clark Gable made, and there's a picture of them as children, and it's just Clark Gable and Joan Crawford's heads on their bodies. It's like, why does Hollywood keep doing? They've been doing this for decades.
It's so fun. It's such a funny image, and there's just like a random man between them.
Right.
Whose face you don't see.
Okay. Let us talk about Mr. Oberhauser's big plan. So now the movie has been insisting from the marketing, from the buildup of the movie when we first see Blofeld, is like, they know each other. What is going on? What is the plan? Who is he? And we get to, oh, this is a communications place. I intend to surveillance the world.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, no, but you don't understand. I have done even worse things beforehand. I have bombed cities to get South Africa to approve of this plan that will give power to this one guy at MI5 that is also a protege of me. So I will be in charge of looking at you while you're taking a dump.
Yeah.
How does that hurt James Bond?
He literally runs an organization dedicated to extortion.
Because this Blofeld is dedicated to hurting James Bond, not extortion.
Yes, as a child, he goes into terrorism because he hates James.
You can't even finish the sentence. It's so stupid.
Okay, he goes into terrorism because he hates James Bond. But as a human being, he has not dedicated all of his life to solely killing James Bond. He runs an organization that does other things that just so happen to sometimes ensnare James Bond. And so the idea that this plan in particular is just to fuck with James Bond, I don't think that holds a lot of weight. I just think because M got killed, this is the plan that James Bond has suddenly stumbled ass backwards into finally meeting this guy.
But Blofeld literally says, but I'm doing this to hurt you, no? He's like, I'm the author of all your pain.
You came across me so many times, and yet you never saw me. Le Chiffre, Green, Silva. A nice pattern developed. You interfered in my world, I destroyed yours. Or did you think it was coincidence that all the women in your life ended up dead? Vesper Lynd, for example. She was the big one. And then, of course, your beloved M. Gone forever. Me, the author of all your pain.
He's the Joker, Jan. He's gonna say whatever the fuck he wants.
Tee-hee-hee, I've been responsible for all the things that you've done. I am going to surveil the world. How does this have anything to do with what is happening? Like what the main thing of the movie is? It's just like more like commentary on like, you know, surveillance is bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't gel together.
As somebody who, like Troy, was aware of the twist and then saw the film recently, like all of this would be just kind of like generic and whatever, except for the fact that there were brothers, and that I was mainly surprised that it comes so late in the film and basically has no impact on anything else.
Bingo! There it is.
It's
like
stupid and it means nothing. Troy, you've been upset with Jan about his nihilistic views on like liking Die Another Day. This is probably the most nihilistic thing of like, this is the big reveal of this entire like run with Daniel Craig, and it goes nowhere.
All right, Mr. Jake. There is a whole scene in the ruins of MI6 with him using string to tie together all of James Bond. You cannot say the movie forgets about it after this. They're still doing stuff with it. You can choose to not like what they do with it.
Well, yeah, we know he's the person in charge of like the organization that made all these things happen, but also he's his brother, and you're just like, what does this add? Is this supposed to make me care more?
I think it's interesting that the climax of the film becomes Bond and his found family of M, Q, and Moneypenny going up against someone who is his past family.
Who he abandons to be with a woman.
They're still talking. He's still talking to them at the end of the movie. I wouldn't say he abandons them.
He'll show up for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, he'll show up. He'll do
I think
things.
there is something to that. I do think that Paul really hit it on the money, which is just like, they just bring things up. They introduce things into the screenplay because they think that just by virtue of them being brothers, it'll add emotional stakes.
Yes.
But they don't actually do anything emotional with it. And it's the same thing of like,
true, yeah,
it's his found family, but we don't ever see them like really hanging out or anything, you know, so
That's the whole first hour of the movie. Q and him got milkshakes together. Him and Moneypenny talked on the phone during the car
Yeah,
ride.
it's not like they're chums, you know? Like, I felt more in the Q-Bond connection in License to Kill, you know?
Yeah.
Well, yes, the Q-Bond connection is stronger in License to Kill because Desmond Llewellyn and him have that long history. I definitely would say they're chummier than the Connery era, where he's just like, all right, going in for work?
Sure. Okay. So then he gets put in this CGI chair.
And we see the cat, and the dreamlike cat is like building up.
The cat is there. Is he ever holding the cat?
No, I don't think he ever does. I think the cat goes into James Bond's lap at one point, but not.
How subversive.
You know what's really funny? In the original script, the cat was there, but he like jumps on something and he just goes like, get the fuck off that thing. I hate that thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, this moment really, I mean, still to this day really makes me groan that like, my name's not Franz.
The man you're talking to now, the man inside your head, is Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
Got your name.
And then you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Why? What?
It's a twist only for the audience.
Ernst Stavro Blofeld. I'm like, what is bizarre name to pick as your fake name?
I picked an inconspicuous name, Ernst Stavros. It's like, so the chair that drills the needles into, is it supposed to like wipe his memory or something?
No, what it does, it has a little needle, and each needle is going to go into his brain and like mess up a motor function.
His memories.
But again, goes nowhere, does nothing.
Again, I'm left to interpret that. I don't really know what little drills do, you know.
That's something that someone that knows what little drills do would say.
No, there's a fun fan theory about this of the little drill, right? Is that the little drill killed James Bond and they messed it up, and that this whole rest of the movie and possibly the next
It's a dream.
movie,
It's like Total Recall.
Which that's actually interesting because they wanted to do that for No Time to Die.
Wait, really?
yeah, Fukunaga wanted to canonize that.
Wait, he would wake up and still be in that chair?
Like the first half of the movie would be a dream, and then you realize that like the ending of Spectre and the first half of the next movie would be a dream.
I wish they would have done that. It's just a huge waste of time.
We go out of our way to build this behemoth like serialized saga just to mind wipe it.
They pull out of the snow globe and Daniel Craig's just a guy in a mental asylum. The ending of St. Elsewhere all over again.
Okay, so they should get out through some stupid contrived thing, right?
Yeah,
What
no,
do they do?
because they set up the watch.
Yeah.
Q in the beginning goes like, the alarm is really loud.
Oh, one word of warning. The alarm is rather loud.
Meaning it explodes. So Bond remembers that the watch explodes, even though this is like 2.5 hours ago and we've forgotten.
And one movie after Q says, we don't do exploding anymore.
Yeah, no, it just immediately gives him an exploding watch.
Yeah.
And so here's what's also interesting. At one point, there was also going to be a card game. So there was one draft where like Blofeld talks about a card game, and there was one draft where they were actually playing like a children's card game.
Wait, like not poker, like Uno?
Like, I don't know, some children's game with like playing cards, and Bond wagers his watch to trick Blofeld into taking it even though it's armed to explode.
They're playing Guess Who? Does your character have a mustache, Mr. Bond?
Is James Bond still in the chair when he's playing the game?
No, there is no chair. The chair is like a very late addition.
They're like, we can't have them playing Uno.
We can't have them playing Uno. This is just weird. So now they have to come up with like this convoluted thing where Bond takes off his watch, tells Madeline to come over and take the watch so she could throw the watch at Blofeld. But then you kind of see like, oh, I see where it started and then where it ended. And where it ended is just baffling on its own. But
I do like that after Bond meets Madeline, every kill or not kill he does has to be on the same page with her. Like they either have to work together to kill someone, or they have to be on the same page about not killing anyone because they're partners.
Sure. You want to know another like draft of the script was that, so when they go to the apartment, Q would be kidnapped and he's held prisoner there. This is the draft where Bond tricks Blofeld into going to the old MI6 building to find this document or whatever. Bond and Q are being held prisoner, and it's still written as it is in the script where like Q goes like, well, alarm is very loud. And then when he goes in the cell with Q, he's like, I lied. The watch actually isn't just an loud alarm clock. It's an explosive. Use it to escape. And that's how they escape.
The screenplay is written with the fucking feet, man.
Hey, Quentin Tarantino had nothing to do with this script.
It's written by a pretentious filmmaker trying to scramble for ideas on how to one-up his other movie.
Though I will say this pretentious filmmaker does have a pretty fucking cool explosion here.
Guinness World Record.
Guinness World Record, baby.
Biggest cinematic explosion.
One take, one camera, you know, but shot on film. Very impressive stuff.
I love how when Bond's escaping, he's mowing people down with just one hand on like a submachine gun. And he's just like effortlessly, like just gliding through it. Again, it's very dreamlike. It's like
this man who was already sickened at a guy shooting himself is now shooting tens of people.
Oh, wait, guys, we completely skipped over the point we were going to come back to earlier where Bond told Madeline not to look at the video.
We kind of already talked about it, but I will say, speaking of how elements are not super well communicated, I was, again, quite confused because I was like, is there some information here that is like she's not supposed to know? And I don't think there is.
He just doesn't want her to watch her father die. That's kind of straightforward, I would say.
But why would she need him to tell her that? Like, she knows what's gonna happen.
Maybe like Juan just like, you don't want to see this, but he wouldn't be like, ah!
Turn it up. No, because he's playing it like there's some, like he's been withholding information from her.
He was.
And now she's going to realize something and not like him anymore.
Turn it up!
But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that he doesn't want her to see her father die, which is just like a natural thing to do.
Instead of like a liar revealed story.
Exactly. Because he tells her beat for beat what happened. Like, I came to visit your father. He shot himself. He sent me here. Like,
I don't know if he says he shot him. See, that's where I differ.
That's what he tells her. He tells her exactly what happened.
Roll the tape.
Your father's dead 2 days ago.
How do you know?
Because I was there.
Did you kill him?
I didn't have to. He did it himself.
And you came all the way just to tell me this, that my father's dead.
My takeaway was, I thought the initial implication, at least, was that she thought he killed her dad. Maybe he did clarify he committed suicide. But what seeing the tape reveals for her is that James Bond talked to him man to man, and like he did it out of caring for her, which would tie him closer to her. And he does not want her to watch how her father died because he knows that would add to her trauma.
But we have already established that she's turned on by death.
Yeah, she's turned on by death, and she hated her father, and then she forgave her father, and after she forgives her father, now she has to watch him like kill himself, and you're just like, this is a big moment that amounts to, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be thinking or feeling.
If I was James Bond, I would ask Blofeld a copy of that fucking video to play it while they have sex, you know, because that clearly turns this woman on.
Yeah, no, I guess they're trying to make it like, oh, Bond cares about like her reaction to watching this, but it doesn't come across that way.
Well, then we go back to London and we're heading towards the climax, which, in my opinion, is almost as bad as the climax from A View to a Kill. It's horrendous.
View to a Kill at least has like a fight scene on a well-known landmark, and that's a set piece.
Well, theoretically, the ruins of MI6 is, it's a sort of a landmark.
Yeah.
I like it because we're going into, again, the depths of Bond's mind at a primordial level. And I like the two different takeoff scenes where, again, his found family of MQ and Moneypenny, they're fighting to preserve the status of the intelligence community, while Bond is going on the more personal level of fighting his inner demons. So I like that little contrast.
I see what Troy is saying here. And again, it's like...
No, I do understand what Troy's saying. And in theory, that's a good idea.
Yeah, all the ideas are there, but I don't feel any of it because it's never led me... The movie hasn't had like one genuine emotional moment.
Well, the movie is trying its hardest to make it seem like this is his new family.
It's a significant moment that, yeah, basically all these people's like, well, now they're all rogue together.
Yeah.
But it's also, again, I'm like, doesn't Madeline basically say, like, I have to go over here now? You know?
No,
like,
she basically says, like, they're like, okay, we need to take care of this. We need to take care of this right now. And then she's like, I don't want you to take care of this right now because you're not going to learn a lesson. You just want to be a secret agent forever, and you're going to lose me.
I can't go back to this life. And I'm not going to ask you to change. This is who you are.
You're saying goodbye.
Yes. Take care.
And you're just like, oh, this is like his end all be all, because Bond is taken aback by like her going like, I will leave you because you aren't ready for me.
Yeah.
But she's been involved in all, and it's not over just because there was a big explosion. I mean, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, but again, she is a person of trauma.
On the other level, the only indication that this is the end all be all is that she says, I love you, as he's being strapped to a chair with drills in his head. Like, that's... And then he said, no, don't watch the footage, and they banged on a train.
Yes, it doesn't track because at some point she's fully into the adventure to the point of sexual arousal even.
I guess this brings back to a point, I'll bring it back at the end. If you're tuned out of a movie and you don't care about what it's doing, then obviously it doesn't matter if the movie does anything, because then it's like...
I will say this, the very first shot when they enter the building has a sign on the front that says Hildebrand Rarity.
Yes, Hildebrand Rarity.
Which disappears.
Which is, I had to send you guys the group chat where it's just like, it's a visual effect. And then it's like a shot of M coming into frame and opening the door. And he actually crosses the camera. So like the sign is there and then M crosses it. and the outside goes out of focus, but then the sign disappears. There's no indication that there's any writing on the wall.
The writing's on the wall.
Illuminate for us lay people. What is what is this?
Hildebrand is Rarity is the name of a short story by Ian Fleming
about James Bond.
So it's like if they just wrote like property of a lady on the wall or something.
Yeah, exactly.
The producer of the James Bond podcast, like, what is this James Bond we're speaking of?
I'm here to be the audience. No one knows what any of this stuff is.
Right. No, you're right.
I'm trying to take a little bit of the weight on Troy's shoulders right now, put it on you with your weird drill fetish and all that
drill
stuff.
Fetish.
I don't have a weight on my shoulders. I feel bad that I enjoyed a movie. I'm sorry, it was so traumatic for everyone else.
It's not traumatic, and also unfortunately, it's not the end of the day yet. Because we have to quite finish. There's not a whole lot here that I even remember.
Well, wait. Okay, so we have the two confrontations. We have M and C.
Hell, yes.
Oh, we're getting to the part that you want to talk. You want to talk about how the death scene of C.
Yes.
But yeah.
You texted us something quite strong.
All right.
I tell you something along the lines of this is hyperbole. Nothing. I'm sure everyone who worked on this did a great job under the situation that they were in. But
sure.
This is one of those bits that you could take out of context and, it looks more ridiculous than anything that's in Die Another Day. It feels like, because I think I read something online about, the budget started to get out of control and they were trying to find ways to cut back. And somewhere in my brain, I was like, did they set up all this stuff and get Ralph Fiennes and Andrew Scott?
Yes, Moriarty versus Moriarty. And then they do a Reichenbach Falls moment with each other.
That's true. And they Reichenbach Falls each other. I was like, did they get them there and then be like, well, we could save like $1,000 today if we just don't choreograph any stunts with these guys. If they just kind of stand there and rock back and forth, and then one of them just falls down.
It's like Reichenbach Falls with Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, the two people grappling over the ledge.
Yeah, because you want to see Moriarty go up against Mrs. Hudson. That'd be the equivalent.
Well, he's not the actual Moriarty. I'm talking about the fight choreography. The actual Moriarty versus Holmes fight is going on with the silly string.
Again, the way it's executed looks very, very, very funny and silly. Like he just goes, whoa, swinging his arms.
Like, it already looks funny, and he turns into a V effect of him falling. And then literally he disappears from the shot because they didn't have enough money to finish the falling effect. So he literally disappears from frame. So they're just like, okay, whatever, he's gone.
Money, time, whatever you want to call it.
I forget, is he holding him by his tie? Is that why? No.
He just trips. And that's what's even funnier about this scene is that they just shoot the glass and then he just goes like...
Yeah, he flails like a Muppet and then he's falling on a green screen, yeah.
And again, we got to mention the C joke right before, which is like...
He takes the gun and then he's just like, oh, I got you, M. I know what M stands for. Moron.
But then isn't that what M stands for? Moron.
And then M goes...
And now we know what C stands for.
Both times I watch this, everyone laughs at it, he means and then he goes, careless.
Careless.
No laughs. It's like, you killed the joke. Like, you had the joke and you killed it.
I mean, that was kind of amusing to me.
Yeah, you like Casino Royale 67.
Because it's Ralph Fiennes. He's not gonna say it.
No, he wasn't. But you could have just left it there. Now we know what C stands for. And a joke.
No, because that's tawdry. I like the careless. I'm with Paul.
You could call it a Casino Royale joke. You just call it like a Simpsons joke where it's like zag,
How dare you compare this to The Simpsons?
You know what's even crazier? In one of the drafts of the script, this whole thing, it wasn't in an abandoned building. It was at like a gala ball, and M reveals that C is a bad guy. And then he goes like, well, we know what C stands for. And then they end the scene right there.
That's what it should have been, yeah. I'm not asking for hard C, just throwing it out there. But yeah, then Calvin Dyson mentions this in his video for this, but like it is very funny, the idea of Blofeld like printing out all these like paper-sized headshots. Like literal, like their actor headshots in the walls. Like,
and it's funny. Like, imagining Blofeld, who just has gotten this horrific scar from that explosion, he's like, who should make the cut? Not Dominic Green. We'll do Vesper and Le
Nobody
Chiffre.
remembers him if you play his picture
it's just
on.
funny imagining him at like Sears or Home Depot. Can you print out these for me? It's like,
Okay, this is another thing. I think I brought this up to Jake. I forgot to make a note about this. Again, loose threads that leave me like, huh? Is there something there? Is there something there? I think it's in their meeting, in the Spectre meeting scene. There's a whole thing about like, the man who is blind has lost his soul.
James and I were both present recently when a man was deprived of his eyes. And the most astonishing thing happened. Didn't you notice? He wasn't there anymore.
Right? And then they kill that guy, right? And then Blofeld loses an eye. So he's half blind. And I'm like, something's happening here, but they don't bring it up. They don't discuss it.
And also, that's the whole implication then of like, he has all the eyes in the world, but then they take out his soul by taking out his whole eyes. So killing him would just be an afterthought because he's already dead.
I like that he printed out,
but only half dead.
He prints out like M and Vesper and Mr. White is like okay, but then it's like Le Chiffre. I'm like, what the fuck? Why would he give a fuck about Le Chiffre? Like,
he's just like, you see, I did all this because then you're just like, yeah, if you're going at it from like, oh, Bond is like an afterthought that just so happens to stumble upon him, but then he takes great pleasure in fucking with him.
It can be both.
But like Le Chiffre was just a banker. Like he was not like
Le Chiffre was a banker that sold to terrorists. And also you forget Le Chiffre hit Bond in the ball.
He also worked for Quantum. No, it makes sense why he worked with them. Raul Silva doesn't make any sense.
It's like if he put up a picture of the guy that he's chasing at the beginning of Skyfall. He'd be like, the fuck is this guy? Like, I don't care.
Mr. White told Blofeld, he's like, you won't believe what Le Chiffre did to James Bond's balls. And then
he should have just touched his balls and go like, oh, like, this reminds me of my trauma.
It's so weird how it's just like, yeah, it's not really established why this is important, so you're just kind of like...
No, this is literally things you know. Like, this character is important to you, so it's just for you. It's not for James Bond.
It's just like we want to set up as Blofeld as like the end game of Bond's journey through these 4 movies, and it's meaningless because they just kind of intersect with each other and it's not like a big plan, and also if it is a big plan, it's really stupid.
Yeah. And then also when he meets Blofeld through the glass, it has a Paris, Texas shot where Blofeld's face is superimposed in Bond, implying that they're like 2 sides of the same coin. But again, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you haven't...
What makes them similar?
Well, look at all the death and destruction Blofeld has wrought, and look at all the death and destruction James Bond has wrought. For the first 3 Craig movies, he was a terrorist, just killing people. And then the end of Skyfall establishes his new family, which is moving him on a new journey. And then we see this family in Spectre, and this family helps lead him to Madeline, who is the next step of his psychological evolution. And the whole climax of Spectre is asking, is James Bond going to continue his cycle? Kill Blofeld, kill everyone, blow up more buildings, blow off a woman who loves him? Or is he going to not do that, allow the authorities to take it, allow his family to help him out, which he does allow them to help him out, and finally move on and become a fully rounded man?
But James Bond hasn't expressed any sort of like doubt or remorse or anything.
Well, he's stoic. It's his actions. He's a man of action.
Yeah, so you're just left to like, the movie's just going like, I'm just bringing up things. It's up to you to, and I'm like, okay, but this isn't an art house film and it doesn't give you things to chew on. Like,
no, it doesn't. It's just like, here's the thing that happens. Why?
Well, again, we're running into a thing where they literally have a one of the things I might say about Spectre is it maybe holds your hand too much and is a little obvious with some of its thematic things. They literally have a Paris, Texas shot with Blofeld mapped onto James Bond.
Yeah, because it's telling you like all the parallels. You're like, yes, go on.
Like, they can do lots of cinematic things to kind of raise points or observations.
Sure.
But like in terms of the journey of this character.
Exactly. You're just hitting it on the head with your drills today, Paul. You're drilling it.
You're hitting it in the head.
He has some reservations when the guy shoots himself in the head. he chooses not to shoot Blofeld after he's been like blown up like 6 times in a row, which is really something in that action scene. And then he does like the whole hit me, you know, from that the Joker did.
Yeah, we want to do the Joker, blah, blah, blah.
Finish it. Finish it. Out of bullets.
In between those two things, there's a whole lot of killing.
Yeah, you also are mentioning like the biggest thing with this character, James Bond.
His cock.
Yes, that's big too. But this is a character, part of his trademarks is that he's got a license to kill.
Yes, and he has a license not to kill.
A license to kill is also a license not to kill.
What does that mean?
It means you can't just kill people willy-nilly.
Complete non sequitur. He could choose. He knows when it's the right time to pull the trigger and when not to. And yeah, you want to communicate this idea that if he kills Blofeld, that he will just continue down the cycle of doing the same shit that he does always. But that's not what James Bond is about. He's about killing people.
It's about killing people.
It is.
That's what he's about. It is. That's what he's about. That's his core trademark, is that he fucking kills people. And this is the movie about like him deciding when is it not time to kill someone. And it's also drawing parallels between this evil dude where it's just like, this is where you'll end up if you keep part in this. And you're just like, no, this is not where you'll end up. What the hell are you talking about?
I don't know how much we're skipping ahead here, but I was thinking about this watching, because the whole thing kind of is Blofeld is defenseless. It is on a bridge in London where everyone can see him. And it is funny, even in this movie, how a core tenet of the Daniel Craig Bond movies is he keeps killing people on camera in highly public places.
Yes.
But in this one, he is fully seen in London, his home turf, that he would be killing a man defenseless. And I was thinking about this. How often has James Bond killed the main villain of a movie out of spite and not in self-defense? Like, I think it's always been in self-defense. Like, the movies have never actually crossed the line of him killing.
In a traditional action movie, that is more heroic, right?
License to Kill is straight up a revenge story.
Well, yeah, and that's why I don't think it works as well.
James Bond is not that kind of hero. He is not Batman.
He's not a hero, in fact, some might say.
He's a murder man.
Exactly. So in this movie, he finally stops being a murder man, and I go, bravo, we're doing the work.
I think it's so lame. Again, to try to superheroify James Bond.
Yes.
And Christoph Waltz is just like, do it. Let's prove that you are no less than a murderer. And I'm like, he just killed everyone in this movie. Like, what makes him different?
The difference is because his girlfriend is right there, and she's like, I'll leave you if you, like, kill him. And I'm just like, this man is a fucking menace. And you've killed so many fucking people. You had to kill your way out of, like, his fucking exploding base. Shoot him in the fucking face. Like,
no,
what the fuck is your problem?
Revenge. The police are right there. And especially in the context of No Time to Die, we know Blofeld was only able to throw a birthday party that blew up hilariously in his face from behind bars. This guy is neutralized. This guy is not a problem going forward. There's no need to shoot him.
But Spectre is still a thing.
No, it's not. It's one birthday party away from getting wiped out.
Has to shoot him. It's just like, what does this say?
It's literally trying to do the Batman hit me. But Batman is a guy that doesn't kill people, so the Joker taunting him to kill him. Like, it makes sense.
Batman is a guy that had a very clear step-by-step arc in which he observes the effect of trying to shoot people. He wrestles with his temptations. James Bond, like, has reservations a couple of times in between mowing people down, and then this happens. How does that track?
Well, we all agree Batman is a better character who is more fully fleshed out than James Bond on most occasions.
It's fundamentally not what the character's about. It's under the assumption that, like, Bond needs to not kill people in order to move forward.
I mean, literally before we started this podcast, like I'm talking today, before we started today, I had no idea that this movie was supposed to be about him just permanently stopping being James Bond because
it's the final James Bond adventure.
How does that work?
Because he falls in love.
He falls in love all the time.
Yeah,
I know.
Falling in love is how he started becoming Bond, and now it's how he stops.
Yes, exactly. It's the full loop.
This is one of the least romantic times where he's fallen in love, I must say.
He's fallen in love before. It doesn't mean he have to give his job, and he gives up his job, and it's not really established. Like, it's kind of established, but we don't see like Bond really reacting to when these ideas are brought up, because you have like Moneypenny in the beginning going like, "Don't you have a life?" That's the first time.
It's called life, James. You should try it sometime.
And the next time is Madeline Swan going like, "Don't you want to give up?"
Why, given every other possible option, does a man choose the life of a paid assassin? Is this really what you want? Living in the shadows, hunting, being hunted, always looking behind you, always alone?
They all do that.
They literally every movie.
Every single one has this stuff, so it literally did not register that like, oh, when he doesn't shoot that one guy, that means that it's the end of 007.
He throws the gun in the river.
The whole thing that it's really hanging its hat on is you buying into this romance where he's just like, I can't be with this woman and be happy if I killed them, because she like says to my face that you can't be an agent and kill people anymore, which is really dumb.
The relationship that changes his life and that is consummated immediately after he kills somebody.
Yes.
They worked together. Madeline did the big thing. He was on the ropes of Hinks, and Madeline made the decision to kill him to save.
Maybe her pussy was just so good that's what I'm getting from this. Is like,
all right, some points here. The helicopter, very for your eyes only.
It's a helicopter.
Been there, done that.
All right, so yeah, now we're getting to the ending.
Yeah, Bond throws his gun in the water and he resigns from the service, apparently. And he asks Q if he could have his car.
I thought you'd gone.
I have. There's just one thing I need.
And him riddled with smart blood where they can track him. They drive off into nowhere to have a romantic outing. The end.
The only happy ending of the Daniel Craig tenure, I would argue.
Lame.
Originally in the script, Daniel Craig was going to say as they drove off, we have all the time in the world.
Yes, that is true.
They would save that for the next movie to drive that into the ground.
Again, like that would be terrible, because then as an audience member and a fan, you're like, this is now tragic, right?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What does that mean? Every choice.
Wait for the
like
next
that.
movie where it loses even more meaning as they drive into the ground.
Do you remember who we watched this with the first time?
No.
Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh.
He was there.
Yeah, no, Pierce Brosnan was there, and he left halfway through.
Yeah, he was so offended that he was like, I'm bored.
And then he saw Jan, and Jan was like, I love Die Another Day, and he's like, this is the worst day of my life.
He probably just saw me, and he like sprinted out.
Okay, so I guess the question is, Troy, do you want to go first or later on?
I want to give Troy the final word, because we've given him a hard time. I can start, because then Jake has stronger feelings towards this. Yeah, so the hair, good, 8 out of 10. It's not as good. The fits in general are not as good as in Skyfall. This was not as good looking in general as Skyfall. We've talked about that, but the whole Tinker Tailor Soldier whatever model thing does not do any favors. So Daniel Craig is not as greatly photographed in this, and the hair, it's kind of doing the same thing, but I don't know, it doesn't have the same spark. 8 out of 10. It's good. The movie itself is a big bowl of dog shit. It's so boring. Basically, one of the prime examples of something that I say all the time when I'm working to people, especially in advertising, which is ideas are not stories. Because in advertising, they constantly throw out these ideas, and I'm like, okay, and they're like, no, that's it. And I'm like, okay, but you didn't tell a story with that. You didn't follow through. This doesn't track. It's not communicating things. It's not executing anything. And it's the same problem I have, like I've said, with the Star Wars prequels. When people say, "Oh, it has ideas," I'm like, I don't care. Ideas are not stories. The important thing is how the ideas are executed. a lot of ideas here. I don't love the ideas, but they could have worked with a strong execution. The execution is terrible, much like Quantum of Solace. This is a movie that insists that it's like a character study and it's an arc and there's a little lesson at the end there. But most of the movie is completely disconnected from these themes and these lessons. And then just like sporadically is mentioning, oh, it's about this, it's about this. And then at the end, it's like, Bond's like, I guess I'm good now. And you're like, how did we get here? Like you gave nothing for me to chew on. This ending feels completely unrewarding, like completely unearned, and it makes me feel like it's a huge waste of time. All of the action set pieces are so stale and standard, like they're impressive, but it's not like in Skyfall where there were inventive new things in it. Like there are no creative concepts here. So yeah, just bad villain, really bad villain, really bad Bond girl, which is a problem because this is supposed to be a romance. Really, really, really bad, stupid arc for Bond that is incredibly poorly communicated. The main problem with this movie is that it is 2.5 hours long and remarkably little happens in it. Nothing is, it's like looking at a fucking wall drying up. Very, very boring experience, 4 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, I had been warned of this film. I knew that even the people that worked on it had admitted the problems, particularly with the ending, and I was mainly taken aback just kind of throughout that this reeks of a lack of purpose. I haven't heard Mendes talk a lot about this specifically, but just watching the film, I really am not sure why he wanted to come back. I don't really see what we have here that is building on Skyfall, because clearly it is trying to. A lot of the same ideas revisited and kind of diluted, I would say. And I think the biggest problem also is it seems at odds with itself in terms of it felt like they needed to make like a more kind of high octane, like more traditionally exciting action movie, more unlike Skyfall, and it just really feels out of step with itself. And then when you add the script, it doesn't have the lowest lows of the franchise. I think there are definitely like discrete sequences and moments in older films that are more kind of galling and baffling. It's a classic confusion leads to something kind of very in the middle. The hair didn't offend me. 6 out of 10. I don't know.
How would you rate the drills?
The drills are one of the worst things about that. Like, I don't really even get what they're doing. Like, they're drilling into like his jaw, and I'm like, what's that? What is that? Throughout the movie, I'm asking, what is that and why?
Sam Mendes went to the dentist and thought, that's
fucking torture.
Audible confusion. Please take it away from me, Jake, please.
Okay, I'm gonna get to the hair out of the way first. It's not bad. I think Skyfall looks a little bit cooler with the shortness. This is still pretty nice with the comb back. I guess it's an 8. That's fine. This movie, however, the James Bond movies have always been, and I've hammered this over the head a couple times in this episode, fun, escapist action films first. And no matter how bad or problematic or fucked up or rough around the edges they get, they still are trying to be that first and foremost. What Spectre is trying to do is trying to be like another Skyfall where you kind of get a little something more out of it. And Skyfall has its problems. We went into depth with a lot of the things that don't make sense, but there is an emotional through line that gets you through everything. And the action is good too, and it looks great. What you have with Spectre is a million different ideas about, like Sam Mendes wanting to kind of up Nolan on talking about surveillance and talking about the problems of our times, and it doesn't really gel with the other story that he wants to tell, which is supposedly, how does James Bond carry on? Will he do this forever, or can he break the cycle? Which I think is a detrimental thing to do with this character, because that is not what James Bond is about. And I get if they're trying to do an ending, I guess I can see how you came there, but that this is not what the series is about. It is about the lifestyle and the action and adventure of this one guy. And I get that they're trying to do something different, and they're also trying to pay off a lot of things that happened in the other movies. And it is a complete and utter failure at that, at being like the end-all movie that wraps up this arc, because it insists like, oh, by the way, it's this guy that was in charge of it all the time, which is an uphill battle for sure. They completely butcher it. Yeah, no, you have the revelation of Blofeld, which is stupid and goes nowhere. You have a romance that is supposed to be the end point of James Bond, is stupid, and I feel nothing. So it's a complete failure as a character study because everything is so nebulous. And on top of that, what makes it even worse is that it fails as an action movie. Skyfall, there's a little bit of a dissociative like aspect to the action scenes, but at least they're visually interesting and you have characters that react to them. Here we have just cold action, stock action scenes with people not reacting to things or being stoic and being like just nothing. There's no fun. There's no thrills. That's shitty for one. And also technically incompetent on top of that. So it just makes all these other problems even worse. This is the worst movie in the official franchise because it fails.
I won't go that far.
At being anything. It is a complete waste of time of a movie. It is stupid, pretentious, unfun. I have a problem fundamentally with what it's going for, and also I'm bored. Fuck this movie. I hate it. I give it a 1 out of 5. And that's generous for a couple good things. If they continue the franchise down this route, this franchise will die.
So you liked it. Take it away, our golden boy.
All right, the hair. This is the only time the hair didn't bother me. The hair looks like James Bond. For once, I've accepted Daniel Craig as the one true James Bond. He is checked out to hell and back in this movie as an actor.
You've accepted the blonde?
I've accepted the blonde into my life. 10 out of 10. The movie. I loved it. This is one of my favorite James Bond movies. Now look, watching this movie again, this movie was not like Octopussy, where I was like, oh my God, I loved it the first time. I love it even more the second time. Because watching this movie, normally I go into movies for this podcast going, am I too hard on this movie? With this movie, I was like, am I too nice on this movie? Because it has traumatized so many people by just making Bond and his archenemy Foster brothers. Oh no. How will we ever recover from this? Watching it again, I get why some people would have a negative reaction to this movie. The pacing is odd. Again, if you go into watching this as an action movie, you are going to leave disappointed, even though many of the beats are inventive and fun and built into character quirks. The pacing is slow. The whole movie is like a dense fog. It is not a movie that bases itself in joy. A lot of the best James Bond movies, even Casino Royale a little bit, even though that one's a little tragic, do find moments of joy in the madness. This is not what Spectre is trying to do. This is not what Spectre does. So you got to get on that film's wavelength. And if you're not on the film's wavelength, then you're going to be annoyed with everything it does. Because this is a James Bond movie dealing with ideas. Much like the Star Wars prequels, I will say that the comparison to Revenge of the Sith is perhaps very apropos, and that in both of those movies do not do what you want an action movie to do to qualify as good filmmaking with the constant beat reversals. It doesn't meet the Save the Cat 3 beat reversals. It doesn't have everyone quipping a mile a minute. There are quips, and in many ways, this is the lightest Bond movie of the Craig tenure in how the quips are presented. But they're coming more from Bond's relationship with his found family. It's not like sexual tension quips. It's not, oh, murder is fun quips. Those relationships and murders are given weight in this movie, which comes into why I think it works so well. This is the Bond movie where thematics matter and they're actually integrated into how shots are framed, into how scenes are introduced, and how characters evolve. After Skyfall reestablished James Bond as the myth we remember, this is him going through that myth and grappling with the shortcomings of that myth. how maybe an evolved person would move beyond the violence of it, how Mr. White is now living in a rundown shack with all of his memories tormenting him with a gun in his mouth. Like, that's what James Bond is going to become if he continues down that path. And how the guy who grew up in the same house as him is now running a secret, part of his own Secret Service. And yes, it's the evil Secret Service. It's the bad Secret Service. It's the Secret Service his mom wants him to tear apart. But really, are they not the same in their own twisted way? And so we are unpacking the myth of Bond. It is a lot of the return of previous elements. I believe Sam Mendes said in the build-up that there is a reference to every single James Bond movie in the past in this movie. And so there is fan service. But that fan service is in service of getting us to rethink the whole myth of this is the one last ride of James Bond. And that ride does not end in murder. It ends in him opening himself up to another person, tearing down that brick wall of his childhood, realizing the screwed up stuff behind there, and finally moving on past it. And as he moves on past it, he leaves an idealized version of what James Bond could be by tearing down the surveillance intelligence system. So James Bond is riding to the rescue one last time in a fun adventure for me that sets things up and pays things off. Maybe a little too much. I would argue it's maybe a little obvious with its silly string, drawing connections between everything, but clearly it is not because people didn't get it. As someone who was receptive to the idea that James Bond should change and is capable of change, I quite enjoyed seeing a movie finally realize that. It's not on par with Spy Who Loved Me. I think there's quite a gap because you do see rough edges because of the behind-the-scenes issues, but I'm receptive to its message, and so I give this a 10 out of 10, a 5 out of 5. A James Bond movie that was finally about something, and I enjoyed it.
You know, as you were talking, Troy,
oh no,
I have to say, it reminded me of a video I watched, and it is the review of Batman v Superman by Movie Bob.
That is the worst insult you can.
In Movie Bob's review of Batman v Superman, he says that basically the whole point of that movie is to, you know, subvert, shock, and also glorify like these superheroes where you have a Batman who kills and all that stuff. And it fails completely at that. And in the end, what you're left with is cultural vandalism. And I kind of feel that way about this movie in the complete opposite way, because you now have this thing of trying to rethink this cultural
it's
icon.
Vandalizing James Bond by trying to make him more upstanding.
Upstanding. Yes. Yes. I am standing by that because that's not what the series is about.
Again, when this podcast started, viewers can check the tape. There was a key disconnect between me and Jake where I'm like, I'm not sure I like James Bond as a character because he's so pornographic in his murder, in his sex, and like...
Yeah, but this is not real life. This is a fictional character.
And I want to see this fictional character grow and have an arc. And this movie did it.
Well, we're still here talking, so I'll be abundantly clear. I maintain what I've said in other episodes. A good movie is a good movie. And we've proven that we can be receptive to this guy having an arc in which he changes and does whatever.
It's just poorly executed.
I would love to see an awesome movie where he learns about the law and international espionage and what does it really mean in real life. And
okay, but that's not a James Bond movie.
And I just didn't think that this story like demonstrated that.
I'm a little confused where it's like the idea that James Bond has to quit being James Bond because he comes to light about the intelligence community. I would argue that the entire Daniel Craig era, including No Time to Die, has rightly or wrongly tied him leaving the intelligence community to his own personal feelings about his personal well-being. And I guess that's kind of the framework I feel you have to take that
I
on.
Totally agree with what you're saying, Paul. To me, is my main thesis is like ideas, not stories. It's all in the execution, baby.
And again, if you don't think the movie is executing it well, more power to you. I think this movie is very oddly paced. let me say this. Like, I give it 5 stars. I would never put it in my top 100 or my top 250. I can get into it as a dream logic, but it's odd. So I can see how you would say maybe the execution does not pull you in to carry over the idea.
Look, I can scoff at this, but if we ever cover Batman, our Dark Knight Rises episode will probably be an exact inverse of this.
Yes, and we do this because, again, Batman is a good character, and what he represents is good. What James Bond represents is bad. So I'm open to him.
Now we know what T stands for. Troy.
Oh.
Okay.
Well, what do we do now? The end?
Actually, this ends with me getting out a gun and trying to kill Troy because how dare you have... No, I don't care.
But he does have a gun. I don't
know. Are we going through this arc of like me and Troy like trying to kill each other, or do we
it's too late now. You have to do it. Yeah. So he's chasing Troy.
I'm chasing Troy.
I'll hold him tight. You do the gun. Paul will do the drills. I'll hold him.
Oh, and also next week we're finally watching No Time to Die. We're very excited about it.
Really? But it hasn't even come out yet.
I know. We got tickets to the premiere.
Yeah, we got tickets, Jan. We're all going.
Oh shit!
Can we imagine if somehow me and Jan saw No Time to Die before Jake, and we realized that Jake was going to have a bad reaction to the movie?
Why would I have a bad reaction to it?
I don't know. I just something tells me you're gonna have kind of a panic attack when you watch it.
Why? What are you talking about? It looks great. It looks so much fun.
Yeah, it looks good.
Jake, just remember, James Bond is a fictional character. No one can ever take that from you. And
shut the fuck up, Troy, and keep running. I got a gun. Anyway, see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Once again, we're sorry.
The missiles have already launched. Just get out of there.
Get it on. How did you get it off?
It's permanent. Eternal.
Well, that's not gonna work. I'm not gonna make it.
If we only had more time.
You have all the time.